As we celebrate 18 years of racing here in beautiful Union, South Carolina, the sun rains down today on our first dry race of 2014. Hello, everyone, and welcome to GNCC Live on RacerTV.com. I'm Rodney Tomlin, Jen Kenyon, and Johnny Gallagher to join us in just a little bit, and we are poised for a great round number 4 here at the VP Fuels Big Buck GNCC. Of course, as we said, we've got great sunshiny weather. We've got a legendary track here, and of course, more legends, I think, are going to be told here today, and more stories are going to be coming from this particular event. There's something about the Big Buck GNCC, and there's a lot of people that can attest to that. And I know that as we head into this 4th round of racing, there is a big deal as far as the championship is concerned, and things are really starting to tighten up there. And let's head down to Jen Kenyon as she gets things sorted out for us as we get ready to roll here at the Big Buck GNCC.
Well, we've seen Caleb Russell go on a 2-race winning streak heading in here to round 4 today. It's still Charlie Mullins who holds that XC1 Pro points lead into the Big Buck GNCC. Now, Charlie, he has 1 win under his belt. He's got 2 wins here at the Big Buck GNCC in the past, so we know Charlie's going to be a strong competitor heading into this one. But Caleb and Charlie, they've had that epic battle for the championship points for the last 2 years now. So those guys, they know how to race against each other. They know how to race for themselves. But we can't forget the number 3 finisher right now in the overall point standings, and that's Josh Strang. Josh is a 2-time Big Buck GNCC winner as well. He's still looking for that elusive win he hasn't gotten since 2011, so he's hungry for a win. He knows how to do it here at the Big Buck GNCC. We know he's going to be a factor there. He's not too far away from that championship points chase, so the 3 of those guys, they're going to be going for that championship and for that overall here today. But we know there's a lot of guys out there that may not be in the championship points. We've got Paul Whibley, who had a bad race already this season, Thad Duvall, who's had a bad race already this season, and plenty of other guys. But they're going to be going for that overall win. They just want to get those points. They want to get that win while, they still may be a little bit far off of that championship chase. It doesn't count for anything unless you've got some wins under your belt. So, the Baylor boys, they're South Carolina boys. I know both of them. They've got a bit of a little rivalry going on right now. Grant Baylor, he's the XC2 reigning champ right now, but he's been getting up there in the overall points. Stu Baylor's back from injury, but he's having a really great, consistent season here so far, so we're definitely going to be looking for those two to be battling up there up front. But for now, we're going to head over, and Rodney Tomlin's going to introduce us to our top riders here today.
And welcome and thank you, Jen Kenyon, as we welcome you to the starting line here along RacerTV.com for this episode of GNCC Live as we head down to the starting line right now. The XC1 Pro class and over 240 riders are poised to tackle the terra firma here in South Carolina as we celebrate our 18th running of the Big Buck GNCC. And of course, coming to the line here in mere moments will be our starting lineup for this Big Buck GNCC. And of course, it goes in accordance to points of the class, which is a little different than the overall standings as we roll into today's racing action. Of course, the way that we look at things as we roll into round number 4, this VP Fuels Big Buck GNCC rolling to the line first today. He rides aboard the number 1, your current class points leader from Boonville, North Carolina. On a factory FMF KTM, your defending GNCC champion, Caleb Russell. Rolling to the line second today in points of class, but your overall points leader, as he has the white background with the red number plate. He hails from out of Hickory, North Carolina, aboard a factory FMF KTM, a former GNCC champion and current defending National Enduro champion, Hot Rod Charlie Mullins. Rolling to the line today, third in points. He rides aboard the number 4, a 2-time winner of this Big Buck GNCC, a former GNCC champion, but yet has not visited the winner's circle since 2011. He comes to us by way of Australia on a Rocky Mountain ATV MC Infab and Pro Yamaha, Josh Strang. Rolling to the line next today, aboard the number 7, 4th in points from Cookeville, Tennessee, aboard an Infab and Pro Yamaha, Jordan Ashburn. Rolling to the line 5th today in points. He rides aboard the number 5, a former 2-time GNCC champion from New Zealand, a proud new papa aboard an NFAB M Pro Yamaha, Paul Whitley. Rolling to the line next today, 6th in points aboard the 514 from Belton, South Carolina, on a factory FMF KTM, a former XC2 Pro Lights class champion, Stuart Baylor. Rolling to the line next, 7th in points aboard the number 989 from Williamstown, West Virginia, on a RideMPS.com Amsoil Honda, Bad Duval. Rolling to the line today, 8th in points. He rides aboard the number 264, a former motocross and supercross racer, now riding aboard a KTM backed by Rockstar, WMR Performance, and KTM from Ekron, Kentucky, Ryan Sipes. Rolling to the line today, 9th in points aboard the number 3 from Crown Point, Indiana, on a Rockstar Lucas Oil JCR Honda, Chris Bach. Rolling to the line 10th today in points. He rides aboard the number 12, a former JNCC champion, on an H.R. Palmer Thumper Motivations Dunlop Moose Racing Maximum Back Honda from Mooresville, North Carolina, formerly of Japan, Takeshi Koikeda. Rolling to the line next today aboard the number 10 machine, out of Morgantown, Pennsylvania, on a factory Husqvarna FMF PG Graphics Bell Ray Husky, Andrew Delong. Rolling to the line 12th today, he rides aboard the number 222 from Mashopin, Pennsylvania, on an Obermeyer Suzuki, backed by Fly Racing and WER Racing, Nick Davis. He got 13th pick heading to the gate today aboard the number 151. A top off-road, well, a multi-motorcycle racing enthusiast, of course. He hails from out of Eatonton, Georgia, on a Falco Boots Tri-County Kawasaki, Eric Henson. Rolling to the line next aboard the number 120 machine from Bluff City, Tennessee, on a factory Husqvarna Moose Dunlop-backed Husqvarna, a former motocross great and, of course, off-road racing sensation, Mike Brown. Rolling to the line 15th today, aboard the number 9, a former XC2 Pro Lights class champion and rookie here in the XC1 class from England, on a Maxxis Climb Dirt-Wise back KTM, Jason Thomas. And last and certainly not least, aboard the number 16 machine from Morrison, Illinois, on a Woodstock KTM backed by Fly Racing, CD Boots, Maxxis, and PG Graphics, Adam Bonur. And that, ladies and gentlemen, your starting lineup for this VP Fuels Big Buck GNCC. One more order of business, folks. Let's fire them up and warm them up one final time as we get set to roll into the hills of South Carolina and experience round 4 here from Union County. As we pointed out, folks, one of the most beautiful days that we've seen thus far as the 2014 Amsoil GNCC campaign is concerned. The weather feels great. Temperatures near 80 degrees. We've got a light breeze, beautiful blue, clear skies, only a couple of patchy, big, white, fluffy clouds above us, and that means, folks, it's going to be a great day. Yesterday's ATV racing saw not only Chris Borich's 70th win, but it also saw dry conditions like today, and also dusty conditions as began to prevail by the end of the race. Will that become an issue here today? Only time will tell the story, as these 16 top XC1 Pro Class riders, along with over 240 riders here on the starting line, along with them on a 13.8-mile race course, get set to tackle this Big Buck GNCC 18th time here. And, of course, all attention begins to turn to Ricky Towery up near turn number 1 as our maestro and conductor of ceremonies will ready us for the start of today's racing action. And as he makes his way out into the first turn region now, Ricky Towery will now signal to these riders 1 minute before the green flag flies and GNCC racing will be underway here in Union, South Carolina. The hearts are beginning to pound once more, folks. The championship, as so many of these riders said coming into today's racing, is almost as if it's a new championship, a new race and a new series. So many riders on such even ground. No one is really that far ahead of anyone at this particular point in the championship points race, and that means it's still anybody's championship as we roll into this round. All attention and eyes up to Ricky Tower as the blue flag comes out. Shut them down, guys. Shut them down. Shut them down. As we are now less than 30 seconds away from going GNCC racing, and I got to ask you, South Carolina race fans, are you ready to go GNCC racing? Now, come on, Big Buck. That was good, but I know you can do better than that. I got to ask you one more time. Are you ready to go Big Buck GNCC racing? 10 seconds. And row number 1, the XC1 Pro, will be off and rolling at our VP Fuels Big Buck GNCC. The XC1 $250 whole shot award to the whips. The Axeman grabs it, steals it from teammate Jordan Ashburn. Jason Thomas back in the number 3 spot as we kick things off here at the Big Buck now. XC2 Pro Lights class. Defending champion Grant Baylor, Shane Hufford, Lane Michael, Trevor Bollinger, Jedediah Haynes, Samuel Evans, Chris Douglas, Michael McGinnis, Zach Love, Derek Allen, also Alex Beathart, Ricky Russell, Jesse Grom, Lucas Statham, Cole Hensley, Philip Cheney, Cody Gregg, Ryan Lojak, Matt Beatty, Mark Horesco, Matt Harrington, Cody Harding, Stephen Squire, Kalen May, and Trevor Barrett ready to roll in 10 seconds. For row 2, the XC2 Pro Lights. Green flag up, race is on. $100 whole shot award from digitaloffroad.com up for grabs, and that one's going to belong to the 21 machine, Big Sam Evans out of St. Albans, West Virginia, on the AOMC Appalachian Off-Road Motorcycles back KTM, Fly Racing, Ride PG, you name it, boys. That guy's got the support, no doubt about it. And here we are with our guest starter, Jeff Hendricks. Dr. Jeff Hendricks here with us, and Jeff is going to be our guest starter here with us a little bit today. And, of course, as we get set to roll with this 258 class, our attention once again turns up to Ricky Towery. And, Jeff, we're ready to go GNCC racing and win.
10 seconds.
And the 258 class will be off and rolling. And they're off. And around the outside, Rise Energy Drinks, by the way, I want to say thanks to Dr. Hendricks there for being on hand with us. I believe that might have been Delong battling it out for one of those early leads in that class. That was a younger brother of Andrew Delong, Craig Delong. 4-stroke A lights coming up right now. Ryan Ballou, also Brady Myers, Alex Teagarden, Luke Parsons, Cody Pingley, Tyler Brandon, Aaron Given, also Van McCarron. We're talking about Evan Earl, Joshua Lee, Ryan Slotko, Cole Kirkhoff, Nathan Zicklow, Glenn Drum, Alex Witkowski, Cody Jeffers, Tristan Lander, Jake Froman, Corey Blayton, and Andrew France in less than 10 seconds, folks. Trying to snag the early leader in this one. That's the 210 machine. Joshua Lee from Statesboro, Georgia, on a Kawasaki of Statesboro MSR back Kawasaki. As we go next to the Open A class, riders like Bob Dunlap, Phil Smith, Nathan Thornell, J.B. Love, Zach Hayes, Timothy Murphy, Wes Keller, Zach Tussle, Jared Jordan, Hunter Williams, James Steiner. That's Big Jim Steiner there, I believe. Also, Dill Murphy, Tanner McCoy, Joseph McCarty, Logan Cook, Brandon Peterson, Zach Brown, Cliff Oosley, Larry Sylvia, Casey Leatherman, Adam Warner, Vincent Smith. 10 seconds. Also, Zach Dotson, Trent Smith, Brandon Higgins, and Andrew Boggs. And they're off. See if we can't snag the early leader on this one. It says a 17 on his bike, but can't quite grab the number off of that. 200A class coming up next, if I'm not mistaken here. Checking this might be the Vet A. Yeah, Vet A 30-plus class. Shotgun Sean Remington, Big Jim Steiner, that's there he's at. Joe Kessler, Matt Bosch, and Alexander Legault, John Beaver, Brian Hollingshead, Wesley Triplett, Curtis Ryan. 10 seconds. How about it for Shotgun Sean Remington? Looked like he's going to get that whole shot. Don't think so. The 53K Yamaha gets squeezed out. That's the 65 machine. Big Jim Steiner out of Van Etten, New York, taking the early lead on the Ithaca Recreation Sports Get Rec Graphics Factory Connection Racing Back Machine. As we go next to the 200A class, I believe now. And this would be guys like Logan Papoul, John Hugel Jr., Zachary Ferentz, Christopher Vendetti, and more in 10 seconds. Nick Mellinger, Clint Masters, Taylor Johnson, John Snow, Michael Pillar, Brandon Gearing, and Jonathan Johnson. Senior A 40-plus class. By the way, the 60 machine, I believe it was, or the not sure who grabbed that whole box. Senior A 40-plus coming up next. Kenny Hawkins, Harry Engelhart, Doug Blackwell, former national hare scrambles champion, by the way. Rectatia, Todd Vest, Steve Mullen, Frank Tussle, Kent Nusden, Patrick Tobin, William Wilson, Josh Scott Moore, and 10 seconds. Jason Smith, Ronald Awad, John Leonard, John Chambers, Roger Guthrie, Bob Bergman, and Charles Baldwin all rolling into that first turn region in this Senior A 40-plus class now. Open B class coming up next. We got Ryan Edmond, Andrew McQuaid, also Jeremy Randolph, Joe Sariski, Dallas Williamson, Frank Gallo, Dave Devaney, Devin Gold, Isaac Parsons, Andrew Bolton, CJ Seitzinger, Patrick Jones, Jared Fortner, George Burkhart, Tyler Anderson, Zach Beverly, Austin Kimmy, Kenneth Wilson, Bradley Chapman, Michael Hall, Dustin Stanley, Ryan Cotta, and Daniel Slodovnik in 10 seconds. .221, Dave DeVenny out of Petersville, Pennsylvania. Good jump off the line, but it looks like across the stripe, it's going to be the 769 quite possibly. Maybe 359, whichever, but good battles over the start in that class. CWB 40-plus class coming up. Scott Campbell, Darren Vendetti, Paul Barkhurst, Michael Bryant, Michael Beckett, Ed Chaplin, John Kohler, and Tommy Wilson. All set to roll next as the blue flag unfurls once more, and this blue flag signals less than 30 in that 10-second call getting ready to be made as Ricky Towers lets these riders know it's time to go in 10 seconds. Paul Barkhurst out of McConnelsville, Ohio. Good jump on that KTM off the line. See if it's going to be a good enough jump. He's met with some resistance out of Michael Bryant from McKean, Pennsylvania, the 337, I believe, grabbing the early lead in that one. Four-stroke B lights coming up next, if we're reading them right. Matthew White, also Stephen Carlitz, Justin Leonard, Garrett Duncan, Hunter McDaniels, Eric Huber, Trey Jefferson, Kyle Gray, Hunter Ayers, Drew Bolton, Alan Notting, Christopher McManus, and more in 10 seconds. Dakota Sims, Colton Hawk, Josh McDonald, Garrett Coe, Corey Sprouse, Alex Ankrum, Austin Evans, and Braxton McGee. Off and rolling. Austin Evans on the 777. They got a great start in North Carolina a couple weeks. Look at that thread at the inside. He don't get the lead, but I believe it was the 887 of Braxton McGee on the Stickman Graphics Madman Cleaning Solution back machine. actually stealing that early lead away. As we go, I believe it's to 12 next, the 250B class. Less than 30 to go for these 24 riders. Brandon Kimberlin, Colin Keegan, Luke Rush, Sean Morris, Regis Calfo, Kyle Young, Matthew Donahue, Zachary Perry, Garrett Ward, William Russell, Brandon Boyers, JoJo Bowden, and more in 10 seconds. Coleman Branson also out there with us. Chase McCullers, Ryan McManus, Cope Beckert, Joshua Chex, Curtis Palmer, Landon Lynn, Keith Mitchell, George Shell, Joshua Winkler, Nicholas Johnson, and Tanner Hughes. And the drag race of the, wow, it's the 519 it looks like. Ryan McManus out of Nelsonville, Ohio on the Shriver's Pharmacy Attitude Salon. O'Neill, Leatt, Dunlop, back KTM. And I believe we're looking at our final row now, if I'm not mistaken, the Met B 30-plus class getting set to roll as we turn our attention up to Rick Towery once more for 10 seconds. And the hearts are pounding here as we get set to go. And we still got one more row. I lost the last couple of pages of my race sheet, so this next one will be the Vet B 30-plus class. And so we roll into this 3-hour race here today. Nice cool breeze blowing, and I'm sure it's going to be a welcome breeze for these riders as they intensify the battle today. And these riders on this final row are going to feel the same heat that the rest of them are feeling as we get set to roll in 10 seconds. And the final wave of the green flag here at the Big Buck GNCC for 2014 as we are officially 18 years running, or 18 runnings anyway, of this Big Buck GNCC. And of course, another historical year well underway as we wish happy birthday to Henry Turner, Mr. Big Buck, from right here in Union, South Carolina. And we are so glad to have all the great folks. I want to say thanks to the doc from over at Rise Energy Drinks. Power your body, power your mind, folks. And stop over and see the folks from Rise right there in the food court, as well as we got some great food court folks. And we got great things going on throughout the pits, throughout the racetrack. And those of you folks at home, stand by. We'll be back with more of our great GNCC racing with the GNCC Live right here on RacerTV.com.
Twins have notoriously been very hard on crankshafts because that big long stroke of those two cylinders just flexes the crankshaft around. So we were seeing bearing issues. Research development people at Amsoil could show us that it was likely an oil problem. And they were correct. That was the issue. Instead of having to redesign the engine, I just had to do a better quality oil.
Sometimes you come across something so different, you just have to stop and check it out. The Rocky Mountain ATV MC website has everything you need, from our huge selection of apparel and gear to dirt bike accessories and OEM parts. Our extensive inventory means most orders arrive in 3 days or less. Get low prices, quick shipping, and incredible customer service. RockyMountainATVMC.com. Get ready. That combines precision-engineered handling, industry-leading power, and a rider-focused design. We call it a Can-Am. From the essentials to fully loaded, you'll find that same combination in every ATV and side-by-side we build. And right now, get your own for as low as $149 a month. Can-Am, the ride says it all.
The top racers choose the Sunstar Work Z stainless steel rear sprocket. Featuring an offset tooth designed for self-cleaning, it's up to 40% lighter and 3 times more durable than standard steel. Teamed with the Power Drive countershaft sprocket and Works triple guard sealed ring chain, you've got unbeatable performance and durability. Sunstar drives Ryan Sykes, Thad Duvall, Adam McGill, Jared McClure, and many others. Watch for them on the podium all year long.
Look at that.
All right, guys, welcome back to GNCC Live here on RacerTV.com. As you can see, I'm joined by 2 awesome people here. Our normal guy, Johnny Gallagher, XC1 Pro ATV rider. We're glad to have you back here, Johnny. We're joined by a new face here in the booth. We have Brian Pierce of Seat Time. You're here all the way from Texas. Brian, welcome to GNCC Live here on RacerTV.com.
Thank you very much. It's been an awesome experience so far.
Yeah, now I understand you had a pretty awesome experience on the track this morning. We're actually going to ask you about that in just a couple seconds.
Worries.
I'm Jen Kenyon, of course. We're waiting for Rodney to get back here from the starting line. But first, we want to throw it over to Barry Hawkins, see what he's got to say about today's track.
Hello, everyone. We've got a 12.8 mile track,
Okay, so
nearly 13 miles laid out here in South Carolina. We got here on Monday, and it rained on us all day on Monday, and we got nearly 2 inches of rain. So I got a little concerned that we were going to have another mutter. But ever since Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the rest of the week has been beautiful. So everybody's going to they're not going to get a mutter this week. It's going to be should be a perfect weekend for racing. Nice sunny skies. So, with the nearly 13-mile track laid out here, we got the famous hill climb, creek crossing. That as soon as you exit the creek crossing, you go up the hill. That's at the 3.5 mile marker. From there, they're going to head out towards the 4 mile marker, and then the 5 mile. Once they get to the 6 mile marker, that's where we got another hill climb at that point. It's not nearly as big as the 3.5 hill climb, but should be really interesting there. A lot of lines up that hill. From there, it's going to head out towards the 7 to the 8 mile marker. At the 9 mile marker, we have another small creek crossing hill climb. I think that shouldn't get too bad for the guys, but once they get past there, they're going to go into the pro pits, and then after the pro pits, that's where I think things could get interesting. From the 11 to the 12, and from the 12 into the finish, that's where I think the best part of the track is going to be for the guys. We've done a lot of work in there, cutting new trail in there. A lot of valleys, ups, downs, a little bit of slow stuff, a little bit of fast stuff. So there's a good mix in there. And all in all, we put a lot of work into the track. And like I said earlier, I'm finally glad to get a good weekend under our belt. And hopefully everybody leaves here with a smile on their face. Back down to you, Jen.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks, Barry, for that. Ooh, look, we got some action on the screen here. We've got somewhat of a hill climb going here at the Big Buck GNCC. Of course, round 4 of the Amsoil Grand National Cross Country Series presented by Maxxis. Like I said before, we're joined here by Johnny Gallagher, Brian Pierce of Seat Time. Brian, you see these track conditions here. You raced the morning race this morning. Tell us what this is. What's going on here on the track?
Well, it looks like they're on the hill climb that unfortunately the morning race didn't get to take part in, but it looks like a lot of the routes are coming out, which is what we were seeing in the morning race and some of the back section, much steeper. Luckily, those guys are getting some help when they're going down there. But the dirt's still really good. It looks like there's still some moisture from the dew that kind of came in the morning. I thought the traction out there was awesome while I was out there. The fields were super dusty, so those guys are going to have some trouble there.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a mixture of things going on. Where you've got that sun shining, it's going to be dry. There's going to be a lot of dust, but there's also some sections. I know, Johnny, you raced yesterday here, same track, probably similar conditions. What was it like for you guys out there?
Yeah, the track was actually really good yesterday. This is a track that's real open, has a lot of lines. There's a lot of diversity on this course. We've got some stuff that they'll be running today that we didn't yesterday. It's incredibly tight, more like an enduro type setup. I mean, they'll be bar to bar, banging off the trees with their bark busters. And then what you really can't see from this shot, this is around the 3.5 mile marker, is really how steep this hill is. You can see these guys trying to walk up it, and they have their hands. It's a near vertical hill, comparable to something we'd see like the Ironman hill climb or something like that. It comes right out of a creek at the bottom, so they're carrying water. It's going to get slicker as the race goes on. And what we can't see from this angle is that there's actually a rock face about halfway up this hill that is taking away all their momentum. They're not going to be able to get any grips. You have to get all your run at the bottom of the hill and almost jump over the top. So you can see some of the B classes and are really having a problem with this hill. But it's a great track. I think we're going to see a lot of bar banging action today, and it's got a little bit of everything. It's got a little bit, as we can see, you know, these guys struggling, and you're going to see a lot of this with the amateur classes. You're going to see guys kind of just trying to ghost ride their bike to the top, circa Blackwater 1993, if anybody's seen the old tapes. So definitely going to be a lot of great racing action today, and looking forward to seeing how it all shapes up.
Yeah, of course. Now we're here in Union, South Carolina. This is one of the bigger communities that back GNCC racing. Brian, I know this is your first time here in South Carolina, but these people are diehard fans of off-road racing. They come out here. You see, you know, hundreds, thousands of people out there in the woods. There's a few different spectator spots here at this one, and I know people really get into it. So it's really interesting to you know, see that, because the fans, they offer a whole nother aspect of support and you know, help for some of those guys. Now we're going to see the pros come through there again shortly, and it's going to be pretty cool to see the way that they take, you know, what lines they take to get up that hill. I know a lot of you guys here are watching the XC1 Pro battle go down. We've got Charlie Mullins in the lead right now by only 3 points. Caleb Russell, of course, he's coming off of a two race win streak here. But we've got guys like Josh Strang, Thad Duvall, Paul Whibley. You know, interesting enough, Paul Whibley's one of the top guys that hasn't won at this race before. So I know a lot of people are speculating a lot of different things, which is the perfect time to explain our Amsoil Twitter contest. Brian, you're a social media guy. I know you get really into this.
Absolutely.
From home. We want you guys to tell us who you think is going to be on the podium. So tweet your podium finisher. You can predict anything, anybody. It's not about whether or not you get the prediction correct. We just want you to hashtag GNCC Live in that, and you can win $250 in Amsoil products. So I got to ask, Brian, who's your pick? Podium, top three.
Top three is tough because of the fact that we've had 3 mud races and now we don't. So I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, who from last year was really good in what are really good conditions? And I think that Caleb Russell is going to come away with the win. Not just because of the fact that he's been so commanding lately, but as well because he's going to do really good in these conditions. Mullins in second, and then the tough one, it was like I was thinking maybe Duvall.
Think he's due?
Yeah, I think he needs to get up there. He knows that.
For sure. Johnny?
Well, you know, we listened to the pre-race interviews for those of you guys that are here at the track, and for those of you that are home that missed those, you know, heard a lot of confidence out of Thad Duvall. He said simply, I'm here to win today. That's something we haven't heard out of him in a while. I think a little bit more swagger in his step today. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say Thad's going to pull through with the win today. I'd be remiss if I didn't say how strong Caleb has been here in the past several years. Obviously, this is somewhat of a home race for him. So I think Caleb will end up second. And then for third, I'm going to go with the long shot and come through with my boy Chris Bach. So I think he's due. And, you know, it's nothing against the rest of those guys. I mean, obviously pulling for my Yamaha teammates there with Ashburn and Whibley and Strang, and I think Mullins is going to be strong. But most importantly, I think we're going to see a 3-hour battle today, and these guys are going to be bar to bar. So I'm excited to watch it go down.
Yeah,
now,
definitely.
What about you? We're going to put you. No. You're not getting out of this. Right now, top 3. Let's hear it.
You know how indecisive women are about things. You know, me personally, you know, thinking back to our multi-time winners here at the Big Buck, Charlie Mullins has 2, Josh Strang has 2, Caleb has 1, so we know those guys are strong. I think that all the factors are pointing towards a Josh Strang win here today. Not only, you know, he does well at this race, he's due for a win. I know we've been talking about this and hyping this up, but it's been since 2011 since we've seen that guy win a race here in GNCC.
Coming off a strong win last weekend, too, at the Mid-East race.
You're right. And I think Charlie's going to be really strong in this one, and I'm really looking at Thad Duvall to be up there. So, but as we all know in GNCC, it's unpredictable. We have 3 hours of racing. We know they just got started. So, you know, what we want to do now is take you guys over to a little bit of a GNCC 411. For those of you who are joining us that may not know exactly all the ins and outs of what's going on, Brian, you may want to pay attention. This is going to be a really good learning opportunity for you.
Crash course.
We'll go ahead and get that rolling now.
GNCC Racing is a cross-country style motorsport race featuring either ATVs or motorcycles. Depending on the event schedule, 6 to 7 races featuring riders as young as 4 and as old as 60 plus will race at any given event. GNCC racers come from all 50 states as well as numerous countries all around the world. The race starts as a dead engine start, with each rider lined up on the row of his or her class. Each row starts on the wave of the official's green flag and the race is on. Race arrow signs designate the race course, and with some exceptions, riders must stay within 25 feet of the race arrows. Riders do not get to practice or pre-run the track, but are allowed to walk the track during designated times prior to race day. A GNCC racetrack may include trails, footpaths, roads, hills, motocross tracks, and any terrain navigable by a bike or ATV. A course is typically between 9 to 12 miles long for the afternoon race, but shorter for the youth and amateur races. XC1 or Pro level racers will have a red number plate with white numbers on their machine, and XC2 or Pro Lights riders will have green number plates with white letters. The point leader in each class will have their number plate colors reversed. Flags. The green flag signals the start of the race. The yellow flag signals caution. The 2-lap board signals 2 laps remaining, and the white flag signals 1 lap remaining. The checkered flag signals the race is over. Riders are scored when they cross the finish line by a transponder mounted on their bike, and overall position and time are adjusted according to the row in which a racer started on. Once the race is over, the top 3 finishers in both pro classes are interviewed on the Maxis Victory Lane podium, and top riders in every class are awarded trophies. If you would like to learn more about how you can go GNCC Racing, check out the series website at gnccracing.com or follow them on your favorite social media sites.
Welcome back to GNCC Live here on RacerTV.com. We're here at the Big Buck GNCC. It looks like we got our leaders coming through the pro row right now. We saw Jordan Ashburn, Paul Whibley. Man, they're just all so close. I saw Ryan Sipes up there. We see Andrew DeLong, Stu Baylor, Chris Box up there, and Thad Duvall. So, you know, those guys are all just nose to tail here on the opening lap. According to our screen right now, it looks like the 112 of Charlie Mullins is actually out to a early lead here, which is never a good thing for the other guys, as we know. But
what an amazing shot that was. I don't think I've ever seen that many riders in the pro pits, not in the pits, but coming through the pro pits at one time. I mean, we've got some really close racing action here early. We saw Caleb working his way through the pack. Anybody that was watching the start saw that he was nearly last after a first turn incident with Nick Davis. Didn't go down, but he was held up, had to wait for Nick to get his bike up out of the way, and looked a little frustrated, but obviously he's charging early and coming back. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, with these guys this close together, you know, are they going to slow each other up and can Charlie get away, or are they going to push each other and we're going to see this freight train race, you know, through the first several laps?
Yeah, definitely. It's always interesting to see how everybody acts on the first lap. I mean, as you know, Johnny, in the ATVs, you guys have a 2-hour race. Sometimes it's more about strategy. You hear guys say, "Oh, I'm gonna let this guy lead for a while. I'm gonna see what he's doing." But it seems like on Sundays for bike day, those guys, we got the XC2 Grant Baylor's coming through. It looks
Shaking
like
out some cramps.
Yeah, man, these guys, it's hard to tell. There's Shane Hufford. I know he's in third. I missed the second place guy. Who's Grant battling with there?
It looks to be one of
Trevor Bollinger, maybe?
Yeah. It looks to be Trevor Bollinger on the number 18 Honda there. So that was last race winner and our defending champion, or, you know, battling each other. Last race winner. Champion. Yeah, Trevor got the first win, that first XC2 win in North Carolina. So a little bit extra swagger and confidence today. And then Grant knows he needs to get a win here. You know, he had a great comeback ride in North Carolina to come back and get that podium, but I think he was wanting a little bit more out of that, and he knows he needs to get a win here soon.
Yeah, definitely. Now, with this faster terrain, you know, Brian, you were out there earlier. Sometimes it seems like in the first few rounds with those muddy conditions and everything, it kind of spread everybody out because a guy would get stuck and then another guy would come up, and it was sort of like a game of cat and mouse. They'd catch up, fall back, catch up. But it's like these guys are all out there together right now.
And what I noticed is right before this section, so they come to the pits, is where we go through the really tight woods. And Johnny and I were just talking about maybe there's a good chance, since it's so hard to pass in there, that there was a good chance for a lot of guys to kind of catch back up to each other, because there's really no way to pass in that situation. You're just kind of, you know, cat and mousing into each other there and then coming out, and that way we get to see everybody coming through the pits all together.
That's right. Now we're about 27 minutes in. I think what the first lap was, I would say 26 minutes or so there. I don't know if, the pro pits was towards the...
Yeah, the pro pits, they've added a little bit of course for these guys. They've added about a mile of tight section. So they're coming through roughly the 11.5 mile marker. I believe that the 12 mile marker is just before you come to the backside of the finish line area. So they're calling, I don't think it's quite 13 miles, but it's 12 plus mile course. And, you know, I mentioned earlier the diversity of this course. And I think one thing that we will see is we're going to see a lot of riders today that are going to be strong on one half of the course and not struggle, but maybe the rider behind them or in front of them is going to be stronger on the other half. It's an interesting course in that the way it's laid out, one half of the course essentially is faster, dustier, hard packed. The other half of the course is rooty, loamy, and tight. So you're going to see the enduro, faster guys that are going to be stronger on the second half of the course. The early part of the course is going to be the faster GNCC motocross type guys.
Yeah, and that's interesting to note. I know talking with some of the riders this morning in the youth and the morning, they said something to the effect of there's a road, and on one side of the road, like you said, it's faster, and then the other side of the road is more technical. So it's got something for everybody, and we have such a variety of riders out there. I mean, Charlie Mullins, he's the national enduro current champion, reigning champion from last year as well. He's good at that kind of stuff, that tighter sections. We've got Ryan Sipes right now. He's up in the third place spot. He's a motocross guy. He came straight from motocross and supercross. He's fresh off that, so it looks like he's pretty excited. I know leading up to this race, he's been talking about, I cannot wait for a dry race. I just want to have a dry race. I want to show everybody my motocross skills. I want to show everybody that I can do this. So that's good for him. It sounds like he's getting those conditions that he's been looking for all year.
It's noteworthy that I had two riders, two XC1 bike guys after Florida, won't mention their names, tell me that Ryan Sipes blew by them in the fields in Florida like they felt like they were on an 85 and he was on a 450. And obviously these guys are no slouches. These are the best riders in the world. So Ryan Sipes has some amazing corner speed and amazing field speed, and here they come to the finish. So it looks like we've got Mullins in the lead like we were expecting, and we should be waiting on Jordan Ashburn in that number 2 spot, and we'll see if Ryan Sipes is still holding on to that podium position in third. But, as Rodney would say, check out Charlie, maybe going into effect here early with, this early. And the other thing that we have to note is with the dust today, Charlie's in a good position, not only for vision, but also if the dust would get bad enough, these guys are going to start potentially having air filter issues where the filters are going to clog up, causing the bikes to run rich and cost them a little bit of throttle response. Where Charlie being out front, until he gets into lappers, he's going to have a good probably lap and a half, 2 laps of clear trail. So it's going to be an advantage for him. And now we see, Jordan Ashburn coming by the studios in second. And it looks like we've got, Ryan Sipes checking in third. And there's Caleb.
Here
so
comes
what a
Caleb
charge
Russell.
he's on
He's
early.
coming for it. It was interesting. You were talking about the different types of terrain that goes on between one side of the road and the other. The routes in about the 7 to 8 mile section are absolutely insane. It's so crazy how all the dirt can come out from those routes, and you're just riding on what feels like these crazy rocks. Because even though you're on routes, you're just jumping all over the place and hanging off of those guys. So I'm wondering, since I got horrible blisters out there, how these guys are going to hold up.
Yeah, and
They're a little more shaped than me.
Well, it's funny because after the opening round in Florida, everybody leaves with these massive blisters with sand and all the whooped out, and we didn't have that this year. So maybe their hands haven't gone through that abuse yet. So this may be the race that these guys leave from, and they're like, wow, my hands are raw. I can't feel a thing. Now we just saw the top. Get our scoring computer over here. We just saw the top 10 at least go through. They were all nose to tail, but guys, we did see Paul Whibley was a little bit farther down in the pack, so it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see maybe if something happened to Paul on that opening lap. But first, we're going to go to a break, and then we'll be back.
Twins have notoriously been very hard on crankshafts because that big long stroke of those 2 cylinders just flexes the crankshaft around. So we were seeing bearing issues. Research development people at Amsoil instead of having to redesign the engine, I just had to do a better quality oil.
Evans waterless coolant solves your overheating problems. The high boiling point of 375 degrees and low vapor pressure means the coolant stays in the engine and cooling your machine. Randy Hawkins and the Pro Yamaha team has been using it for 5 years. In fact, you'll find Evans in the radiators of most top GNCC machines. Go to evanscooling.com for more or visit their Facebook page for the latest updates. The top racers choose the Sunstar Work Z stainless steel rear sprocket, featuring an offset tooth designed for self-cleaning.
GNCC Live on RacerTV.com. Rodney Tomlin now joining Johnny Gallagher. And I want to say thanks to Brian and, of course, Jen for doing such a great job. I was really enjoying the analysis that was going on there. And I was watching the end of that first lap of racing right there, Johnny. Wow, man, Charlie is in checkout mode right now.
I had to steal your line. I don't know if you heard
That's
me or not,
all right,
but,
buddy. That's
I said, as Rodney would say, looks like check out Charlie's showing up here early. So
he did.
Definitely, I think with the clear trail and with him with an opportunity, obviously in getting himself into a little bit of a I really want to win and make a statement. Caleb last year when he got on a roll was incredibly dangerous.
Right.
So with the 2 wins in a row, you got to wonder, was Charlie starting to think, hey, man, today's my day. Need to grab this lead early and as we say, maybe break his spirit a little bit. So
exactly.
Caleb, I'm sure they let him know Caleb got a bad start and, Charlie's pushing early. So we'll see how it pans out here. It's all unfolding now we'll see him next probably somewhere around the 3.5 mile marker, which is the hill climb. They should be approaching there here soon. So, and those guys, of course, will motor right up it. But like I said, you just can't really do justice with the camera shot as to just how steep that is and how fast those guys are going.
No, watching you guys yesterday was pretty spectacular. A couple other notes that I want to point out, Johnny, as I was watching these riders finishing up that first lap of racing. Of course, we know that coming into this one, we had Jordan Ashburn back in the number 2 spot. Kid actually got a really good, strong start. He and Whibley battling it out for that $250 All Balls Hole Shot Award there a little bit ago. And he's done a great job of holding pace up there, it looks like. Also, one of the big surprises I got, though, I think, and maybe not as big a surprise, it came to me, my mouth kind of dropped at first, and I was like, oh, it kind of makes sense, man, is Ryan Sipes, how strong he is running right now. I believe he opened up in the number 3 spot, and right behind him was Caleb Russell, and you could see Caleb was still trying to make up that lost ground, and if you look at the gap, well, there were 17 seconds between Charlie and Jordan. So, like we said, Charlie's gone into checkout mode already, it looks like, and then another 17 seconds back to Ryan, but behind Ryan by only a couple of seconds was Caleb Russell, and then there was Josh Strang. So I think that 3-way battle and is really heating up right now, and most likely I think that Ryan Sipes is probably getting his first real taste of GNCC racing up front, which is exactly what he needs to make that transition from motocross and supercross to the off-road.
Well, let's not forget Ryan ran up front in Florida early.
Right.
He was in that podium position early in Florida, ran within the top 5 throughout much of the first part of the race, and interesting to note that he openly said after the race, I was good for 2 hours.
Right.
After that, I was done.
And
and I'm sure that he spent the last, call it 5 weeks since we raced in Florida, day in and day out. Ryan Sipes in the moto world was notorious for his training program. He works with Steve Hatch, his trainer. His fitness has never been an issue in motocross or supercross, and I don't think that he was fully prepared for, and here we see, there's the hill climb, and you can see those guys just bunny hopping up it like it's a small little hill, but obviously these guys are really motoring to get up that, and I think we've got an update coming from the hill climb here with Big John.
Yeah, Big John, we got an update.
Well, I'll tell you what, the crowd was awaiting, and we have a lone wolf. Charlie Mullen is here and gone. Probably 45 seconds, 30, 45 seconds behind. Number 7, Will Word. Okay, we got Caleb. Caleb is right behind him. And number 4 on the Yamaha. These guys the last 3 guys are tight together, but Charlie looks like he is checked out.
10-4 copy on that, Big John. And even Big John's even saying it that Charlie's gone into checkout mode. But something else to note, Ryan Sipes has fallen.
A nice good position. He looks pretty comfortable. Go ahead, Rodney. What were you asking me?
10-4, John. No, we got it. Good job, man. So Ryan Sipes is...
First 7 or 8 are up clean.
10-4. Thanks for that update, Big John. Out the 3.5 mile marker. And, wow. So Sipes, we saw him under that pressure from Strang and also from the boys back there, Russell and Strang, and then, of course, Mike Brown was back in 6th.
And let's talk about that for a second, Rodney. We focused on that top 5 battle so far, but in 6th place...
Let me point this out. Paul Whibley is back in 13th place position.
And Paul Whibley was second off the start behind Jordan Ashburn. There's 2 Yamahas up front, like you said, battling for that hole shot award. So obviously something's gone down with Paul that first lap. The Axeman's not going to give up. He'll chop wood and get back up through there. But, definitely a struggle for him the first lap. But, as we saw him come up the hill climb there, we had Mike Brown hot on the heels of Ryan Sipes, and these two are certainly not any strangers to battling each other in the motocross side of things, but now they're doing their bar banging in the woods. So, Mike Brown, I would expect him to be very strong here early. I've heard some rumblings during the offseason that he had planned on doing some GNCCs. I think he had thought about doing Florida, thought about doing Georgia, even thought about doing North Carolina, but it's taken until round 4 for him to get things sorted out, get his program in order, and get it to where he's comfortable coming out here racing that new Husqvarna and doing battle with these guys out here in the woods of South Carolina today at the Big Buck GNCC. So we've got 2 motocrossers in the top 6 right now. Motocrossers turned off-road stars,
right.
I should say. That lends itself to make you think that obviously this track, at least early, is fast and is rough, and these guys are pushing the pace. So how hard is Charlie Mullins pushing to be out front 40-plus seconds on 2 of the best motocross racers with the best sprint speed in the world? I mean, Charlie is really pushing it early, and I think we got a chance to speak with Charlie a little bit earlier today and hear what he had to say.
Yeah, we're here at round 4, South Carolina, the Big Buck, and I think we're going to have a dry race, first one of the year, so it's pretty exciting. And after my second place finish last week in North Carolina, I wasn't too happy. Had a good week, or a good couple weeks getting the bike out and getting ready for this weekend, and Caleb's on his game, so I felt like I put in a good solid 2 weeks getting the bike out and everything. So hopefully get a good start and run up front and hopefully get a win and leave here with the white plate again.
And Charlie, very calm, cool, and collected coming into this one. He knew exactly what he was going to be, what he needed to do, I guess, is probably what I'm best trying to say. Man, I mean, he came to work today to work. I mean, he got to the office early, it looks like, and he is loads ahead of the rest of the field right now. Charlie, I believe, a multi-time winner here in South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, and Josh Strang, another multi-time winner, back there in the number 5 spot. I got a chance to talk with Josh, and this is a hugely successful place for him, and we've talked about it before. It's been since 2011 since Josh has actually seen the center of a box at a GNCC. He was off that year in 2012, and then the comeback year there last year. So, it's not as long as what it really seems whenever you think about it. And maybe that's the reason it doesn't seem that it's that far removed since Josh has been on the podium. But, he's really, really looking for one here in South Carolina today. He's really familiar with this kind of terrain. He really likes it. And we had a chance to talk to him early today, too.
Yeah, it's been a good start of the season this year. We switched to the Yamaha this year, so it's been really good. First year on the new bike, it's been solid for me. I feel like we have a good program going, and I feel comfortable on the bike. And we're our 4th round here at Big Buck. I've won here twice before in the past, so I think really all I got to do is just put the pieces of the puzzle together. I mean, I haven't won for 2 years, so it's been a long time, but I feel like I'm ready to start winning again, and I'm having fun racing my dirt bike. Have good support from RockyMountainATVMC.com, and I just got to race my own race and be there at the start and more importantly be there at the finish and hopefully get a win tomorrow. It should be good.
Well, there you go. We actually had a chance to catch up with him yesterday, and that was the mindset he had yesterday. And in talking this morning with him, it's the same type of mindset he had. I mean, he's carrying it. He's or not he can dig deep enough to make it happen, and still anybody's race, and still a lot of things can happen in this one again for you as we are 42, almost 43 minutes into this race. It's Ashburn, Russell, Strang, then Sipes, your top 5, and then of course we have not far behind that Mike Brown, Chris Bach, Andrew DeLong, Stu Baylor back in a top 10 along with Thad Duvall and Paul Webley all the way back in an 11th spot in class. The XC2 Pro Lights class, we rough and rowdy. Ricky Russell on that Obermeyer Yamaha there, Rains Riding University. Russell, actually, we got introduced to him last year in the XC1 Pro class. I didn't have much of a knowledge of who this kid was. He just rough and rowdy, Ricky Russell. He just seemed like, and I know coming from Washington, he'd have to be. A little guy, though, man, but he is definitely full of a lot of energy. He's full of a lot of talent. And though we haven't seen a lot of greatness out of him, I think right today this might be our first glimpse of what Ricky Russell is possible of achieving.
Well, we saw Ricky Russell with an excellent ride in Florida. And then we saw him with, I believe, consistent podium finishes the last 2 races. But, grabbing this lead early, and actually I can tell you from having watched off the start, Ricky was about 9th into the woods, so he's done some work here early. Interesting little note, Ricky actually went back west last weekend and did a desert race. So, maybe that little bit of a trip home, some home terrain, being around friends and family at home kind of rejuvenated him. Obviously, he's been here since sometime in January, so that's a nice little stretch away from home. Obviously, he's got his girlfriend Jenna with him. They're a great team, works with that whole range riding university Yamaha team, and those guys are a close-knit group. But you know how it is, Rodney, when you're away from home for a while, you get to go home, get rejuvenated, came back with a little extra swagger. And I don't like to be the Monday morning quarterback, and it would be easy for me to say, after this race, hey, I saw a little bit extra swagger in Ricky's step today. I'm going to say before the race, Ricky seemed more relaxed yesterday when I was hanging out with him a little bit more kind of calm and collected and focused this morning even than what I've seen him the last couple races. And like we said, he hasn't had bad races. He's been on the podium, I believe, every race except for North Carolina. Check that, but a little bit extra swagger in his step. And then you mentioned Josh Strang. He was another one I saw the last 2 days. He's just seemed a little bit more together, a little bit extra confidence, and it'll be interesting to see if he can turn that into maybe that breakthrough win today that he's been looking for. Obviously, we of note it's been since 2011. This is a previous champion, multi-time winner, and has been on a little bit of a dry spell with his hiatus from GNCC racing and a little bit extra. But as we see from our camera shot here, everybody needs to get their ducks in a row here real early and start pressuring as we see Charlie Mullins just kind of starting to really walk away with this one early. But we've seen this in the past where a rider gets out front and then we'll get a couple guys together pushing and close in on them. But I can promise you the next time we see Caleb Russell, he's going to be a lot closer to Jordan Ashburn. He was on the charge. Ashburn's riding very well, and here we see Caleb Russell in second place.
Where's that crystal ball at, Johnny?
And I swear to everybody at home, I'm not getting information in my earpiece. There are no other cameras you guys aren't seeing.
It's just logic in GNCC. If you follow GNCC, you know what.
And we see now Josh Strang taking over the 3rd spot. So Ashburn riding incredibly well here early, in that 2nd position. And what I think we're going to see out of Jordan is he's going to latch on to Josh, and those two are going to pull each other and possibly try and stay with Caleb there. Because Caleb's on a charge.
Now, let me tell you something. Did you notice the gap between 1st and 2nd that time? Remember when we were at the 3.5 mile marker? We're at the 7 mile marker right now. At the 3.5 mile marker, we were looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 seconds. It seemed like an eternity before we saw young Jordy Ashburn make his way through in the 2nd place position. Whenever Russell went through, I saw about 25 seconds or so at most, I think, between 1st and 2nd place. So we're starting to see that gap close up already. And though maybe 35 seconds to 25 seconds doesn't seem like a lot, you're talking about 3 miles or so, man. That's a lot of ground gained in that amount of time, especially whenever we're talking about the caliber of riders we have racing up front with Charlie in that checkout mode. But again, he might have had a comfortable enough lead that he's now saying, okay, I can settle into a groove, and that might be where Caleb is going to get that big break that he's needing as he's pushing right now, trying to reel in Charlie. So one thing to point out, though, once Caleb does make it up to him, if Charlie is laying back a little bit, Charlie's obviously going to have that reserve in the tank there where he hasn't been pushing so much, but at the same time, momentum is going to be on Caleb's side, so it's going to get interesting if those guys get close together.
Absolutely, and one thing that Charlie has to his advantage that we've talked about is the clear track that he's dealing with right now. He's got a clear track in front of him. He's not dealing with the dust that those guys are. He can see exactly where he's going, hit the lines he wants. Now, very soon here, we're going to have lappers come into play, and then that's going to be a completely different issue for Charlie to have to deal with because he's the first guy coming through those lappers. They're not expecting him. They don't know he's coming. By the time Caleb, Josh, Jordan Ashburn, and the rest of the pack come through, they know the leaders are coming. They hear that rev limiter. They hear those big 450s on the pipe. They know to get out of the way. One thing that we did see that as we were coming through here, as you were discussing the lead that Mullins had, we saw a little bit of a shakeup back there around the 4-5 spot or I'm sorry, the 5-6 spot, we saw Andrew Delong has actually put the hammer down and gotten around his teammate, Mike Brown. So, and what I would attribute that to is now, as we can see, this is the tighter side of the track.
Right.
This is the roots. This is the, the more GNCC enduro-ish side, which Andrew DeLong really excels in. The other side of the track is the wide open, faster stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Brown come back up and challenge Andrew DeLong again for what I believe would be the 5 spot. Sipes, I did not see come through this camera shot unless I missed him. He came through, but it was a little bit later. And then we saw Chris Bach and the rest come through. One thing that I was kind of surprised, it didn't appear at this point Paul Whibley has made up much time. He's still struggling back there. I'm guessing around the 9-10-ish mark in the XC1 class. So overall-wise, probably considerably farther back than that. So we'll have to check in at some point and see if he's just not clicking today, or if there is some type of an issue with Paul that has caused him to drop back from that early 2 spot, all the way back to outside the top 10.
Well, about 49 and a half minutes, looking at 50 minutes now in the Big Buck GNCC here. XC1 class, again, Mullins, now the new second place, Caleb Russell within 30 seconds, Josh Strang back there, back in the number 3 spot. The XC2 Pro Lights, we just saw there at the 7-mile marker, Ricky Russell and Trevor Bollinger, they are still nose to tail coming through that section. They had a pro rider right there with them, but at the finish line region there a few moments ago, and that might have been Hufford that was right there with them, because those 3 were nose to tail coming through that section. Then Grant Baylor came through. Now Baylor was 3 seconds or so behind Hufford whenever they checked in a little bit ago, actually 5.5, and he's a lot farther back than what he was whenever we saw him at the finish line. And Baylor being from South Carolina, you kind of expect this rider to be quite a bit of attuned to what's taking place here in the soils of South Carolina. And I'm sure there's a lot of expectations coming in on this one. And I know that Grant is expecting a lot out of himself as well, as we had a chance to catch up with him before the race.
Do me and my brother have any rivalry going on? I would say yeah. We've always been competing against each other and, trying to beat each other, and I've always been kind of playing catch up because he's got 3 years on me. But finally starting to catch up now after he got it done with his injury and all that stuff. But yeah, we're really close in points right now, and I just need to get up there and get in front of him and pass him in the points, and then then I can say something. But especially since he's been out for a little while. But yeah, I've always been trying to break his record, and I've always done it. He was the youngest to win XC2, and then I came in and did it a year ahead of him, and same with like the A class and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely we're always trying to go against each other.
Well, obviously coming into this one being in home turf, it's a brother war. The Baylor boys, we heard Grant talking about it right there, and last year, if you follow along on RacerTV.com while Stu was helping talk, he talked a lot about the rivalries that were kind of coming up between he and his younger brother. And actually, he talked about it with us leading into this weekend's racing as well.
We're here at the Big Buck GNCC, and this is the hometown race. Probably my least favorite track, and I definitely know I'm going to struggle with my wrist out there today. Very choppy, hard pack, and slick. The main thing is just to beat Grant. That's my main concern every weekend. As long as I can beat Grant, he's beat me twice this year, 2 weeks in a row, and it's not really what I look forward to. So hopefully I can just stay ahead of him. I just got to stay exactly a minute ahead of him to get even the overall, and that's the plan for now. So you know what? I was walking the track with Caleb yesterday, and hopefully we can use the same kind of checkout method we did at Still Creek, but hopefully I won't have the bike problems and the head injuries this time.
The head injuries might have caught up to him. Who knows?
I think Stu's had a lot of head injuries over the years.
Good kids, though, man, I tell you. And it's neat to see that kind of rivalry between them. And you think, wow, I mean, you're coming into a major world-recognized championship series, and all you're worried about is one guy that starts a minute behind you. Yeah. And, in a way,
I think we see a lot of that, though, in this type of racing, is you see these rivalries, and sometimes it's a friendly rivalry, which obviously with those two it is. They're brothers. They competed against each other their whole lives. sometimes it's kind of a history-driven rivalry where two riders have battled each other for a championship, or maybe have had kind of a run-in on the track over the years that leads to that rivalry. But with these two, this started, probably when they were riding big wheels around. So this is a long-standing rivalry. These two, really want to beat each other, but obviously that fuels them to push each other, push themselves up higher in the overall rankings. One thing that really stood out with me in Stu's interview was, and I was actually planning on saying before when we came back from break or from that interview, is this facility here is a carbon copy, or sections of the facility are a carbon copy of Stu and Grant's practice track. I've ridden at their house. It's only about 45, 50 minutes away from here. And much of this Big Buck facility is the same dirt, the same terrain, the same layout of the trees, the way the trail breaks in is the same. And it's interesting to say that Stu said this is my least favorite track. And I think he touched on the reason why. Stu's been dealing with that wrist injury now for over 2 years. And one thing that he keeps saying is, my wrist won't hold up, my wrist won't hold up. This place gets choppy. And one guy that's not having any problems whatsoever holding up so far is Charlie Mullins.
Yeah,
so let's go ahead and see if we can get a clock. I'm going to use my trusty iPhone and see what kind of a lead we're dealing with here. So as we see him go by that American flag. Oh, wow.
15 seconds. 15 seconds. Wow. That's crazy, man. About 15 seconds. Now, that we were over 30 whenever Caleb came through at the 3.5 mile mark. At the 7 mile mark, or near that 7 mile mark, it had gone to less than 30, about 25. Now we're down to 15, so he peeled off 10 more seconds on that. And here comes Strang now aboard the number 4. The Yamaha confusing me, man. But the Infab and Pro Yamaha, Rocky Mountain ATV, MC.com, and Amsoil backed ride. And Josh is, man, I tell you, he's got a good thing going on. I can't wait to see what these lap times are going to be shaping up like this time, Johnny, because Charlie's running a good, consistent check-out Charlie pace, but we've got a quick Caleb catch-up pace going on, too, I think, right now. So these two meeting each other is, for us, I believe, becoming quite a bit of a rather monumental race that we get to check out here at the Big Buck this year.
Well, you have to ask yourself, how many times did we see this battle last year? I mean, countless. We had 13 races last year.
It never got boring.
We probably saw this battle 10-plus times out of 13 races. Caleb and Charlie, Charlie and Caleb, they pushed each other. They push each other so hard they're able to break away early from the lead pack, or become the lead pack, I guess, and then break away from the rest. We saw on a couple different occasions, we saw Thad Duvall was able to hang with them. A couple different occasions, we saw Josh Strang was able to do it. Paul Whibley there at the end of the year was really strong and actually led Mullins several times there towards the end of the year, early in the race. But as for the most part, these were the two guys that were out front pushing the pace. No doubt we saw what happened with Charlie today, got a good start, got to the front, either recognized the fact that Caleb wasn't behind him or was told, by his crew members that he had a little bit of a lead on Caleb and pushed the pace early. Caleb recognized that he had a bad start and knew he needed to do something quick. One thing that we haven't touched on, off the start, Caleb was last, dead last, the last one away from the first turn. About 4 turns into the race, there was a straightaway, and Walker Fowler was standing next to me, yesterday's second-place finisher, and says to me, "Did you just see that?" And in the dust, I didn't catch it. He said Caleb passed 7 riders in one straightaway.
Wow.
He just took a chance, sent it through the dust, aimed for the berm, made the turn, and was gone. Wow. 7 riders in one straightaway. So he went from last to, there's probably, I don't know how many XC1 riders we had
16 today.
16. So he went from last to 9th in one turn.
That's pretty crazy, and that's pretty gutsy. And those sometimes are the kind of moves you got to make in these early battles like this in order to be a contender. I was watching these riders, Johnny, as you were talking, going through the pits. I think it looks like we might have some changes going on. It looks like that quite possibly Duvall has moved up a couple of spots. Does it look like some changes going on there? I believe we saw maybe Andrew Delong also. 9.5 mile markers where we're at right now with the RacerTV.com GNCC live stuff, and actually 11.5.
Yep, that's a little further. Oh, and look how close he is now. He's even closer than he was. And you can see the aggression. Did you see how hard Caleb was riding down that ravine?
Yeah.
Let me tell you, we ran that section yesterday. That is a steep downhill drop into a 1-bike wide ravine that is off camber. There's rocks, there's roots, and Strang on the charge as well. It appears Strang actually might have made up a little bit of time on Caleb. It's really interesting to me to see how much energy these two are expending earlier. All these guys actually But, you know, like I said, it's that opportunity that Charlie saw that he seized, and Caleb not willing to give up that early lead and try and track him down later in the race. He wants to do the work early. We are now 58 minutes and 40 seconds, so essentially an hour into this race by the time they check in, a little over an hour most likely. So it's looking, if all works out according to plan, I'm guessing this will be a 6-lap race. So we'll be 1/3 into this by the time these guys check in here in just a few minutes.
Wow, I'm sitting here watching. I'm back to 5th place right now. We got Ashburn in 4th, and they're just checking in a moment ago. In 5th was the 120 of Mike Brown. One rider I haven't seen so far that was 3rd place at the end of the first lap is Ryan Sipes. And is that him going there, or is that Duvall?
That was Thad Duvall, and actually, I believe that was Andrew DeLong that was in 5th place. And I think Mike Brown is actually possibly falling back a little bit.
There's Chris Box checking in now at the 11.5.
And there's Mike.
I don't know, man. I think that looked like the 120 when I could have been mistaken, but it looked like a 120.
It's difficult to tell those numbers. They look a lot alike. You got the 10 and the 120.
So it's either DeLong or Brown. I think that was Brown because it makes more sense that it was Brown because Brown was running in 6th place there at one point.
Well, we had seen him. They flip-flopped the last time we saw him on camera, but again, that was the other side of the track. Now
wow,
on the
Thomas has gotten around Whibley now, and he's gotten around Stu Baylor. I didn't see Stu Baylor go through that section. Baylor was back in the number 9 spot, so looks like we're going to have a major change in our front order here whenever these riders check in. And here comes our front runner as we speak, and that's Charlie Mullins checking in now with 2 laps complete here. 1 hour and 7 seconds into this.
And here's where we're going to get the gap. This is going to give us the official number. Russell's going to round this last corner, check in. It's going to pop up on our screen. And we've got
14.9 seconds, 15 seconds. So, wow.
So he made up better than 20 seconds that lap.
Man, that's crazy.
He was definitely on the charge. And Josh Strang hanging tough there in 3rd. So he's
Strang's
definitely
only
put in a good lap.
Now let's look at these lap times. You want to look at lap times. Charlie Mullins dropped his lap pace right there to a 30:02 lap time. A 29:40 for Caleb Russell here on lap 2, and a 29:49 for Josh Strang. So both Strang and Russell are able to gain ground on Mullins by 10 to 20 seconds, 11 to 20 seconds or so. So the gap is starting to close up a little bit on Mullins, but again, he's still got a fairly comfortable lead, but still early in the race. If Caleb gets a chance to see him,
that is Andrew DeLong.
It is?
Yep.
Is it? All right, well then, by golly, it is. So DeLong has moved up to 5th. See, that's what we're talking about, the massive amount of changes that we saw taking place there on lap number 2. So it's Mullins, Russell, Strang, Ashburn, and Johnny called it DeLong. But there is Ryan Sipes. He did check in the number 6 spot, so he kind of threaded the needle through there probably right after DeLong went through. So Sipes is still a solid top 10, only losing 3 or so positions. Waiting next, there's Thad Duvall. So Mike Brown would probably be your 9th or 10th place ride as Thad Duvall checks in the 7th place position.
We've got Chris Bach checking in, and should be Mike Brown just behind Bach now.
And that's exactly what it is. Chris Bach in 8th aboard the number 3. 4 seconds behind him is Mike Brown. And what about Stu Baylor looking for that 5:14 machine? And I ain't seeing.
Oh, it's going to be Jason Thomas checking in the 10th
Yeah, I was going to say, I ain't seeing Stu. I'm seeing JT, man. UK JT in the number 9 machine in the 10th place spot.
Oh, I can see the finish line chicane coming in. We've got Paul Whibley. So Whibley's going to be now running the 11th with Stu Baylor right behind him. And then it looks to be the XC2 leader, Trevor Boland. No, Ricky Russell. Ricky Russell still with the lead in that XC2 class. So he's going to be checking in probably 10th overall would be my guess off the top of my head. But Whibley checking in 11th in XC1. Stu Baylor checking in 12th. And then Ricky Russell, leader of the XC2, right on Baylor. I would anticipate that we would see Russell work his way up in the overall. And
well, you're right. Russell's up to 9th place as we check the official score. We see Trevor Bollinger checking in about 10.5 seconds behind him. He is the 11th place overall right now. So still pretty tight battle going on down there. And I understand Jen Kenyon's standing by with an update. Jen, what's going on?
Hey, Rodney, and I'm down here in the VP Racing Fuels Pro Row, and I was standing next to the KTM pit, and I was interested to see that both Grant and Stu Baylor stopped in for fuel. Now, those guys are both on 2 strokes. I did find out that the two-strokes do burn more fuel than the four-stroke machines, so those guys like to stop early so they can see how much fuel they're using there on the first couple laps, and then they try to calculate it to see whether or not they're, how many more times they're going to need to fuel. So that may be a reason we saw Stu Baylor step back a little bit. It sounds like he had about a 14-second pit there. Grant's was about half that time, so like I said, that could be a little bit of the reason he's behind.
Well, that's great, Jen. Thanks for that update. And that's part of that pitting strategy that so often comes into play. Stu not being a part of the front of the pack kind of makes you wonder what he might be thinking, but it might be something that pays huge dividends later on in this race. Remember, it is a 3-hour race. We're just now an hour and 4 minutes into it. And, of course, we're going to find out what's going to happen over the course of the next 2 hours of GNCC racing here from the Big Buck GNCC when we return here on GNCC Live.
What do you call a machine that combines precision-engineered handling, industry-leading power, and a rider-focused design? We call it a Can-Am. From the essentials to fully loaded, you'll find that same combination in every ATV and side-by-side we build. And right now, get your own for as low as $149 a month. Can-Am, the ride says it all.
Find your flow with Maxxis tires.
The top racers choose the Sunstar Work Z stainless steel rear sprocket. Featuring an offset tooth designed for self-cleaning, it's up to 40% lighter and 3 times more durable than standard steel. Teamed with the Power Drive countershaft sprocket and Works triple guard seal ring chain, you've got unbeatable performance and durability. Sunstar drives Ryan Sipes, Thad all year long.
Carolina and round 4 of America's premier off-road racing championship of the Amsoil Grand National Cross Country Series presented by Maxxis, an AMA National Championship. This is the BP Fuels Big Buck GNCC. Rodney Tomlin along with Johnny Gallagher and, of course, Jen Kenyon out and about. Jenny on the spot, I guess we could call her. And she's getting a lot of those great updates out there. And I'll tell you, some good things getting updates on. We're watching these races. We got some really good team aspects going on out there with Caleb Russell and Charlie Mullins going head-to-head against each other. And there's Mullins coming through right now as we talk about this. An hour and 7 minutes now at the FMF PowerPoint, the 3.5-mile marker here on a near 14-mile race course.
Oh, boy, Rodney,
look at this.
What we got here. I'd say that was about 7 seconds.
Man on a mission. Caleb Russell is right there in the hunt.
Oh, my goodness, and Josh Strang right behind him.
Oh, man. Somebody's playing with matches in the barn, it looks like, Johnny. It could catch on fire here pretty quick.
Let me go ahead and polish up that crystal ball with a little bit extra swagger in his step today. Josh Strang coming through charging hard. Can't take away anything from Charlie, though. I mean, he expended a lot of energy early. Charlie's an incredibly smart rider. He's won championships. He's won so many races. He knows where his energy level's at. He knows where his fitness is. Perhaps he just really pushed himself early and said, he may have had a game plan and said, I'm going to push for a lap and a half. And then at that point, we're going to see where we're at. We're going to regroup. And now I'm sure the KTM pit board guys are letting him know, hey, Caleb's closing in. Charlie might have just said, okay, listen, I know I'm going to have to race these guys, so I'm going to, like you mentioned earlier, if he's got a little something in reserve, maybe he's going to settle into that pace he's comfortable with, not make any mistakes. Caleb's at full tilt right now, and that was Andrew Delong coming
right
there.
Behind Jordan Ashburn, who has dropped a big gap back between 3rd and 4th place position.
And then Ryan Sipes checking in just behind him.
Ryan's looking still pretty strong right now. You got to hand it to the ex-motocrosser, supercrosser, man. He's really adapting well to the off-road. Well, like we were saying, you know, we talk about Josh Strang and Paul Whibley and even Jordan Ashburn. Those guys, man, I mean, they're a part of a great team, and you know they got a great mentor over there, and Randy Hawkins. He's an AMA Hall of Famer. He's a multi-time off-road champion, and he is the man as far as that NFAB and Pro Yamaha team is concerned. And you know, a really neat aspect of what's going on over there. They got a really good program, and we had a chance to catch up with them leading into this week's race and get some really good insight on what AmPro and NFAB Yamaha is all about.
Have you know the racing team. We have Paul Whibley, Jordan Ashburn, you know Brad Bocking, throw riders with just close to our race shop. You know I'm really good friends with Mr. Turner and his son Hank. You know, really super good people. I really enjoy getting the opportunity to talk to them. Paul's been with the team for well, you guys know he's got a heart of Well, again, you know, having a local event, as I call a local event,
and thanks to the guys from offroadviking.com for that insight into the NFAB and Pro Yamaha team, and I guess, Randy and, of course, Paul Whibley in that program, man. Paul's an animal, and you can see it, man. I mean, even in between, and you can see if you've ever seen that man is peak physical condition. There's no doubt about it. He's in his mid to late 30s at this point, and just an amazing machine. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I believe Paul's 35, and I can empathize with where he's coming from, trying to chase the young kids around. But had an opportunity to spend some time with Paul and with the AmPro team actually before the last round in North Carolina after Georgia. Went there for about a week and was there for about a week last year as well. And those guys work hard. They have a lot of fun. Paul's got, you know, as you saw with the kind of hand and foot stair climbing, he has some really interesting workouts he's developed for himself over the years, and he shares those with his teammates. And in terms of training, I mean, everybody has what works for them, but Paul likes to mix it up. Does actually some jet skiing for training. I don't know if I'm supposed to spill the beans on this, but he has a workout he calls the zoo workout, which is actually you reenact animal movements, and you're dragging yourself along the ground like a worm and like a caterpillar and a monkey, and I can't even explain it. You'd have to see it. If we could ever get a video of that, you'd be laughing so hard. But you know, as a multi-time GNCC champion, obviously works for him. Randy Hawkins has just a wealth of knowledge over his years of enduro racing, GNCC racing, off-road racing, 6 days, everything that he brings to the table. Has a great facility there. They put that awesome program together with Yamaha, and the diversity of riders that they work with is awesome. It's great to see. They bring a lot to GNCC racing, and you know that piece really did showcase what all they do over there at Yamaha.
Now an hour and 13 and a half minutes into this race. Still last check, Mullins, Russell, Strang, Russell was closing the gap. We had 15 seconds called at the finish line. It was about half that when they hit this section of the racetrack at the 3.5-mile marker known as the FMF Power Point here. And, still momentum seeming to be on both the second and third place rides of Russell and Strang. And now Charlie's got to find that mode that he started out this race with. And, with the heat and the dust and the time that he spent in that particular pace, is he going to be able to find it quick enough to mount that defense against Caleb Russell? So what's really neat for us to take into consideration, if you look at the gap, 15-second gap at the end of lap number 2 there, Johnny. He was turning a 15-second faster lap time. So in theory, these two should be nose to tail, and in reality, side by side when they come through that finish line here in about 16 or so minutes.
And actually, it was, to give an exact number, is 18 seconds faster than he was on that lap prior.
So he should be in front of him.
I'm not going to go out. It's a lot harder to pass someone than it is to actually catch him. But, yes, you're right. In theory, they should be right together. I think Caleb, though, once he can see him, is going to calm down a little bit. That sense of urgency is going to be gone.
Right.
Once he can physically have eyes on Charlie, he's going to know, okay, I've done the hard part. I've closed down the gap. All it's going to take is one lapper, anything like that, and I'm right back on. Caleb's a smart racer, as is Charlie. As I said, at this point, Charlie's probably conserving energy. He rolled the dice. He took the gamble. It looks like maybe it didn't pay off. But I don't think he hurt himself.
No.
I don't think that he's expended any energy that he can't get back with just a couple of miles. These guys, as professional athletes, it's more in the cycling and the running world, but they talk about recovery time.
Right.
How long it takes from you expending your max heart rate. For these guys, that's probably in the the 180 range beats per minute. When you expend that for any period of time, be it 30 seconds to 5 minutes, and you really that's probably about the longest you can hold it. How long does it take you to recover until basically you no longer feel the effects of that exertion? Guys like Charlie Mullins, Caleb Russell, all these guys, there you go.
Wow.
And that shot just showed it. They were nose to tail, and Josh Strang right there as well.
Wow.
So these guys are, they're maxing out the heart rates, they're pushing themselves, and then now that they're together, they'll probably all kind of take that breath and say, okay, now it's time to let the strategy come into play. We're going to see how the lappers pan out. Fuel strategies we've already talked about. Jed checked in with with the Baylor boys and their fuel strategies. Obviously, these guys are going to have their fuel strategies come into play. So many things going on here, and that's what makes GNCC racing so exciting. It's not, I love NASCAR, but it's not going fast and turning left. You got to turn left and right here in GNCC racing.
And dodge that tree and that rock and that mud hole.
500 or so other moving targets out there on the trail. So
yeah,
it's definitely exciting to see these two battle it out, or these three at this point.
Right.
Now starting to battle it out. But
I come into this, and like Josh pointed out, we've talked about, it's been since 2011 since Josh saw the center of the box, and not only that, we are still early in this race. We haven't even reached the halfway point, and I'm not saying that Josh, and there comes the number 10 of Delong through now. I don't know if you missed Ashburn coming through.
Oh, there's Ashburn behind him right there.
Wow.
With sights hot on his heels.
Delong, wow, that one's tightened up. Ashburn is dropped off to the number 5 spot. Delong is up to 4th. Sykes still back to the number 6 place. We should be seeing the 989 of Thad Duvall check in here pretty quickly. He was about 22 seconds or so behind. I got to wonder if he was able to make up any ground out there. If we look at lap times, he was actually a couple of seconds faster than Sipes last time around. But if Sipes has matched DeLong and Ashburn's lap times, then they might have left him back a little bit further.
Yeah, there's Thad checking in now. So it appears he maybe dropped even a few seconds. But, Thad's an explosive rider. He's capable of throwing down some really fast lap times. Actually, if I remember correctly, he actually turned in the fastest lap. We didn't realize it until after all was said and done last weekend, or 2 weekends ago in North Carolina. We really noted how fast Caleb's last lap was, and the fact that, I can't remember, I believe it was 27-minute lap times that they were running, and Caleb dropped to like a 20, just barely over 26, like a 26:09 or something like that. We're like, wow, that's the fastest lap all day. Well, in the midst of that Baylor and Duvall battle to the finish, looking back at it, Thad Duvall turned in a 25:50 something, so it was like almost 20 seconds faster than that lap by Caleb. So that definitely has the speed. Obviously, things haven't quite gone his way here early. We see Mike Brown checking in. And, one thing that when we say these things aren't working out for them, every one of these guys is hauling the mail. It's not like if they're back in 8th or 9th spot, it's not like, oh, man, they're hardly riding today. I mean, they're still absolutely flying. It's just maybe things aren't quite clicking to their full potential today. But, to put it in perspective, I mean, these guys are still minutes and minutes and minutes ahead of some of the other best riders in the world. So all these guys up front charging. There look like Ricky Russell checking in and Paul Wibley now. So actually those two ride together quite a bit at the Pro facility in near here in Travelers Rest that we just saw. So I'm surprised to see that Paul didn't latch on to Ricky. They, like I said, train a bit during the week and ride together, so they should be comfortable with each other. Trevor Bollinger coming through there in the 2nd spot in the XC2, and then Takeshi Kwiketa, I believe that would be 12th in the GXC. One class, Stu Baylor checking in there, so Stu's having a little bit of rough go of things. Like he said, mentioned probably that wrist flaring up a little bit, the choppy hard pack conditions, and the route's certainly not his friend today, but he's a tough rider. He'll soldier through it and get the maximum points that he can get on the day today.
An hour and 20 minutes into this one, we're seeing some of the XC2 Pro Lights. There's Grant Baylor now checking in the XC2 Pro Lights class out near that 7-mile marker, and we are seeing that Baylor was running 5th. Lane Michael was just ahead of him, the 229 of Jesse Jerome running in 3rd. Looks like they are still within striking distance. They were about 30 seconds back of the 1st and 2nd place riders whenever they checked in at the finish line. It almost looks like maybe that gap is starting to open up, as there was a few lapped riders that were caught on camera there that had gotten in between the two packs of racers there in the XC2 Pro Lights class. Looking at this 10 minutes, a little over 10 minutes before our leaders are due in, and the big question for some of the folks back home are what's going on in some of these other classes. Well, we've got the Parts Unlimited halfway report, or the Mid-State Chevy halfway report coming up here in just a few moments. About 10 minutes out, we'll update you on all of our classes, but just to let you know what's going on as far as the overall, this is a good place to start looking at top overall amateur on the day. And today our top amateur is a 250A rider at the moment. It is the younger brother of Andrew Delong. He is currently running in 24th place overall. It's Craig Delong. He's a Husqvarna rider, also out of Morgantown, Pennsylvania. Just basically a young clone, I think, of his big brother, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, we nicknamed Andrew Delong last year with his aggressive riding style, Hate Tank, because he really uses his. Hate is such a powerful word, and certainly we're using it in jest, but he uses his frustrations and he takes them out on his motorcycle and takes them out on the racetrack. So we coined Craig Mini Hate Tank. Doesn't ride like Andrew does. Not to say that's a good or a bad thing, but Craig is a very fluid, very smooth rider, but he's really grown leaps and bounds as a rider in the last year or so.
Yeah.
He won that 200B title 2 years ago, and then last year rode that 4-stroke A Lights class and did very well. But had a lot of competition in that class with Trevor Bollinger, who now is battling for a win in the XC2 class. But he did put up some good fights in that class. But top amateur, I actually made a comment to him yesterday after my race. I said, hey man, I need you to do me a favor. I did not ride well today. I said, make me feel better. Go out and get that top amateur. And he said, that's what I'm going for, man. So, he's making me proud here early. So I'll be sure to be waiting at the finish line with a high five and a hug for him if he can accomplish that. And, he's out there riding his heart out, as all these guys are for sure.
Most definitely. And an hour and now 22 and a half minutes into this race, Johnny Gallagher, as, again, the leaders due in about 8 minutes. And, like we said, the top amateur. Now, if you're wondering who the second place top amateur is right now, it is the second place rider in that class, who's only 4.4 seconds off the pace. Austin Lee is actually 27th overall right now, but he's battling with DeLong, and if DeLong keeps the same pace and Austin Lee picks it up and is able to close that 4.4 second gap, it could get rather interesting. If we look at lap times, a 32:29 lap time for Austin Lee, and Craig DeLong a 32:21. So he was about 8 seconds faster than the second place ride of Austin Lee. It looks like most of the time that we see separating happened there on lap number 2, because they were tight after that first lap, number 1.
Yeah, and those are two young guys that are working their way up through. just like our leaders, Caleb Russell, Charlie Mullins and Caleb Russell. Craig, I don't believe actually raced the youth series in GNCC because Andrew and Craig really didn't come GNCC racing until 2011, I believe it was, and that's when they kind of got their feet wet. I think Andrew runs a couple races in 2010, and then once he came and checked it out, did well, saw what it was about, it really became his passion. He put his, he was working in his dad's auto shop. He was a part-time farmer. Those guys are from PA, right up near Borich. They actually ride at Chris Borich's house quite a bit, and these guys have now made GNCC their life, and now they're chasing careers and chasing their future in GNCC racing. But Austin Lee, a young kid out of Indiana, have seen him battle with the likes of Chris Bach and Adam Bonner and Steven Squire and those guys at the IXCR and other races across the Midwest. So he's got a lot of potential. Young rider. Both these guys are either still in high school. I know Craig's, I believe, a junior still.
Wow.
Has another year at high school left, and Austin, I think, might be a senior, has just graduated. So young riders like Trevor Bollinger, these guys are coming up through. Even Grant Baylor. I mean, we you look at Grant, and he's been around for so long, and he's done so many amazing things. Oh, and here they come checking in, and Caleb Russell took over the lead, obviously.
Wow, so Russell, the new leader. Mullins now getting goggles and gas and all that, and so is Caleb Russell trying to grab a jink. And look at this, Russell's out first, so he gets out first. And now the new leader, Russell, followed by Hot Rod Charlie Mullins right now. There, look at that. Strang is not far off the pace. He has dropped a little bit of time off of Caleb, but still well within striking distance from that third place.
That's never what you want to do coming into the pits.
You can tell he's not satisfied with that. Shaking it off, shaking his head. But, good thing about it is he shouldn't have any real threats as of yet from even Jordan Ashburn, because I think that they had stretched, actually Andrew DeLong now the new fourth place ride, I think they had stretched out enough of a lead in the comfort zone for him to be able to afford that little bit of time against the fourth place ride. What he couldn't afford was to lose that time that he'd already gained on Charlie and Caleb.
Yeah, and we saw, those guys, all three of them were very methodical with their pit stops. Came in, took the extra time to get fresh goggles, probably the sweat piling up, also the dust getting inside the liners of their goggles. So, they want to make sure they have clear vision to get to the finish line or get to their next pit stop, at least to get some more goggles. And, man, these three have really stretched it out now over the fourth place ride at Delong, who should be coming in here any minute. Anybody who wasn't here at the track that didn't get to hear Andrew DeLong's pre-race interview.
That's him.
And here he is checking in, and that should be Sipes, I believe, who's just come around the outside of the corner there. He actually is pitting in the auxiliary pits, so we probably won't get a shot of him in the pits. But DeLong is out. Probably if Sipes does pit this lap, we'll take over the fourth place spot. If not, it'll be Sipes in that fourth place spot. We'll see when they come to the finish. But, Rodney, I believe it was you who was doing the pre-race interview with Andrew DeLong, and he had stated, what a good race it was, to get that solid XC1 finish in North Carolina, but made it very clear that he wasn't here for top fives. He wasn't here for top tens. He's here for wins. So, Andrew DeLong's got the hammer down. A fourth place ride, very, very impressive, but, he wants more. He's going to keep pushing, and we did just get an update that Ryan Sipes did check into his pits, so we'll have to see how that panned out, if his pit was quicker than DeLong's, or if DeLong did get that fourth place spot back. And now we see Thad Duvall in the Morgantown Honda pits getting a little bit of fuel and getting off and running. A quick pit for Duvall, and it didn't look like he took goggles. So he's on a mission, wants to make up some time.
And he's on the 250 today. I don't know if we made mention of that or not, but he elects to ride that sometimes. And talking with him in pre-race interviews today, he made the statement, I don't think I'm going to be outpowered, because I think he was looking at the tighter wood sections being his advantage. But, I haven't seen it really being a separator or even an opportunity for anybody to close up gaps, to be honest with you. It seems to be pretty much the same types of things we're seeing now, with obviously a lot of stuff out of our sights, and we have seen a lot of times made up, so it might be some of those sections that Caleb Russell was able to make up that ground. We saw Chris Bach, actually down in the Rockstar Energy JCR Honda pits. And here's our leaders again. There they go. Look at that. Nose to tail, 11.5 mile marker. And here's the lap traffic we were talking about, too. And that could have been part of the problem for Charlie that made him slow down. But look how thick. Look at the number of riders they've had to go through, probably in the last half mile or mile or so, Johnny. That is a lot of lap traffic for those guys to have to work through. Here comes the third place ride. now Josh Strang, and he's got to get through those same riders that they've already gotten through. But you mentioned that they know he's coming now, so it might be easier, and he might make up time next time we see them.
Well, let me back up and throw one more thing in that analysis. You know, yes, Josh Strang is an advantage being in that third place spot, but with Caleb and Charlie, that's 2 FMF, you know, but combined a 350 and a 450, that's 800 cc's of rev limiter. So these guys coming together, you know, they're going to work together. They're racing each other, but they both want to get away so they can just race each other. So as much as they're trying to pass each other, they're going to work together to get through traffic. With 2 bikes coming, you know, it sounds like a veritable steam engine, you know, coming behind these guys. They're going to get out of the way quick. Strang, a lot of it does come into play as far as luck, where they catch the riders. You know, if Caleb and Charlie come in behind a rider, there's one section in particular where there's probably 3/4 of a mile where there's no opportunity for any riders to get out of the way. The pace of a mid-pack V rider that these guys are going to be lapping here soon, in just that 45 or in just that 3/4 of a mile section, is probably in the neighborhood of 35 to 40 seconds slower than what a top rider is. That could potentially make the difference of Josh Strang being right on these guys' rear wheel. So it's all we're losing time, and that's the same on back through the top 20, the top 100. I mean, these guys, you know, a lot of times it's how you fall with lappers. We saw it yesterday come into play with our XC1 and overall win. Chris Borch and Walker Fowler throwing down, battling each other. Chris had a run in with a lapper. Walker pulled out 20 seconds. You know, thought it was over. Next thing you know, Walker has a run in with a lapper, and Chris gets by him and gets the win. So a lot of racing left here. Certainly
And amazingly, lap traffic has a lot to do with a lot of the finishes in races that we sometimes know and sometimes don't know about. As Charlie Mullins makes his way in with, Caleb Russell makes his way in with Charlie Mullins hot on his rear wheel there, and the defending GNCC champ now has 3 laps of racing complete. We are 1 hour and 30 minutes into this. Whenever Caleb checked in, if it goes like this, if this is the actual halfway point, 1 hour and 30 minutes and 2 seconds, that's about as halfway as you can get, Johnny. And behind him, Mullins checked in, it says 2.6 seconds back. Another 25 seconds back to Josh Strang. And Josh, I think, lost a lot of that time there in the pits, and he's trying to make up that time. And just saw him go in front of the studio here, just past the finish line. He looks rather aggressive, and he's in an attack mode as we are at the halfway point. You know, I've often heard, you know, we talk about 2 hours, blah, 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 blah. But a lot of the physical fitness experts tell me, you know, the hour and a half mark really is probably about where your body really starts to take it. It gets its toll taken on it. And, you know, if you can battle through that lap and overcome that particular hour and a half mark, then, you know, maybe the 2 hour on won't be such a big deal for these guys or for whoever it happens to be that figures that out. But man, right here is where we either start to see people shine or we start to see where their weaknesses are in their training programs.
Yeah, and I think the 3 guys up front are in a very similar situation as far as their training programs, the routine that they go through. You know, it's funny to see the similarities between all the top riders. I mean, you've got Caleb, Charlie, and Josh are all notorious cyclists. They road bike, they mountain bike, and they've got the fitness to go the 3 hours. But there's no question that these guys can push the 3 hours. We'll see who's got the most of the tank when we get near the end here.
Well, Jordan Ashburn checking in, Andrew DeLong right there with him. No, take that back. Andrew DeLong, then Jordan Ashburn. 1 minute and 5 seconds between the 3rd and 4th place positions. Jordan Ashburn, another now almost 18 seconds back, 7 seconds back behind him. It looks almost like maybe Ryan Sipes might be finding that second win. This is a good place for him to find it, as a matter of fact. This juncture in the race at the halfway point like this. This is going to be a 6-lap race, I've just been told.
Both the juncture in the race and that this is round 4. I mean, Ryan's been up. We've got actually Craig DeLong checking in. That's our top amateur rider checking in the Husqvarna pits. And 1, 2, 3, Austin Lee is coming around the outside of DeLong right there. So I think we had a chance to check in with Austin earlier today, as he's been one of our top amateur riders a couple times this year, and got to find out a little bit more about Austin with his interview.
Hi, my name's Austin Lee. I ride a 250 Husqvarna. I'm from Bedford, Indiana. I ride 250A in the GNCCs. And Florida was all right, came away with the second. Georgia came away with the win, and it was pretty muddy, so I was pretty pumped about that. North Carolina was definitely the best round so far. I came away with the win in my class and amateur overall, so I was pretty pumped about that. Coming into South Carolina, it's definitely my favorite race out of the whole season, so looking forward to putting it back up on the box in top amateur and winning my class. It's a long season, but the first couple of rounds have went good, so hopefully I can carry out the momentum and continue with winning and hopefully stay on top of that top amateur for the whole season. But back at home, I'm from Bedford, Indiana, and it's kind of hard to train through the winter, so training is it's getting better as it's getting in springtime and more into summer, so I can do a lot more training, a lot more riding, and just continue all my training, making it a lot better in the summertime. So I'm definitely looking forward to the future rounds, and hopefully I can come away with the 250A championship and maybe a top amateur.
Twins have notoriously been very hard on crankshafts because that big long stroke of those two cylinders just flexes the crankshaft around. So we were seeing bearing issues. Research development people at Amsoil could show us that was the issue. Instead of having to redesign the engine, I just had to do a better quality oil.
Evans waterless coolant solves your overheating problems. The high boiling point of 375 degrees and low vapor pressure means the coolant stays in the engine and cooling your machine. Randy Hawkins of the Pro Yamaha team has been using it for 5 years. In fact, you'll find Evans in the radiators of most top GNCC machines. Go to evanschooling.com for more or visit their Facebook page for the latest updates. The top racers choose the Sunstar Work Z stainless steel rear sprocket. Featuring an offset tooth designed for self-cleaning, it's up to 40% lighter and 3 times more durable than standard steel. Teamed with the Power Drive countershaft sprocket and works
our continuing coverage of the 18th running of the VP Fuels Big Buck GNCCs. We pick up coverage here on the hill, the FMF PowerPoint, the hill climb out near the 3.5 mile marker. Rodney Tomlin, Johnny Gallagher, Jen Kenyon, and Brian Pierce now joining us as well here today. And just want to give you an update on what just took place here. Didn't see it on TV here, but we got the update whenever Charlie and Caleb came through there just a moment ago. Caleb's still out front, but Charlie making a little bit of a mistake there. Took an alternate line coming up there, a little different line, made a little mistake, lost a little bit of time. That's some good news for possibly Josh Strang there, who we saw checking in just shortly after we heard that update coming in. Oh, man. Yeah. And there we're starting to see the actual challenges that this particular FMF PowerPoint throws at these riders. I mean, look, if you don't have the momentum Brian Pierce is, you're going to find yourself need some assistance from the human chain. If you were watching yesterday, the ATV crowd, just phenomenal, the way that they worked together and made human chains to pull those ATVs up the hill. They're going to try to start doing it for the bikes today too. It looks like a couple of guys getting their going out there. But man, what a great group of race fans that we have as we see.
It's crazy to see how much of a lead Strang has over Delong. We noticed that when he came to the finish, that he had a pretty good lead over Delong, and was starting to pull away and catch up to that pack. And now that maybe Charlie Mullins did have a little bit of a mishap there on the hill, that gives Strang that chance, like you were saying, to catch back up. But I wonder how much Russell's going to be able to pull away now that Charlie's having a little bit of a mishap.
Yeah, that's true, and you know that might start playing mind games with Charlie. A lot of it's going to depend on how quickly he's able to recompose himself after that. Look at this.
Yeah, that's insane.
That's a human
right
chain.
there.
That is. That's right there is what GNCC racing is all about. Watch that big old boy just grab that bike and just sling it up to the top of the hill here.
Think he could throw it on his back and just hike it on up there?
Here, let me get that for you, buddy. But right now, an hour and 38 minutes, almost an hour and 40 minutes into this. I want to get into my Mid-State Chevy report right now, but I want to watch. I want to watch what's going on this hill right now.
This is entertaining. I'm not going to lie.
You're watching GNCC Live here on RacerTV.com as we take a look at our Mid-State Chevy Midway Report, where they stack them deep and sell them cheap there in the heart of West Virginia. And, of course, just go on to MidStateChevy.com, and there's where you're going to find your new next new car, truck, or van. Great prices, no doubt about it, and great deals. And as we take a look at the Mid-State Midway Report, the overall, once again, Russell, Mullins, Strang, DeLong, Ashburn, your top five, Sipes in 6th, Duvall was 7th, Ricky Russell was 8th. That's your leader of the XC2 Pro Lights. Trevor Bollinger, the 18, has now moved into the number 2 spot. He was 14 seconds back. In the number 10 spot overall, Chris Bach, and that puts him, I believe, in 8th place in the XC1 Pro class. Top amateur, as we told you, battling it out right now. He is back in the 24th place position. The 250A rider, actually, they're now 22nd and 23rd. Craig DeLong and Austin Lee. They were 9 seconds apart at the finish line. We saw, though, that tightened up considerably whenever those riders made their way into the pit area for pits there just a few moments ago. Now, as we take a look at the rest of our XC2 Pro Lights class, it's Russell, Bollinger. Baylor has now moved into the number 3 spot. Grant Baylor's only 23 seconds out. And look at the lap time. He actually turned a 14-second faster lap time than Russell's lap time there on lap 3, and also about an 18-second faster lap time than Bollinger. So all of a sudden, Grant Baylor becomes another major player and possible player for the win in the XC2 Pro Lights class, and starting to show why that rider is carrying the green number 1 with him around today as the XC2 Pro Lights class champion. Jesse Grome, the 229 machine from Fork River, New Jersey, runs in 4th here in the XC2 Pro Lights. Lane Michael, the 17 teammate to Thad Duvall on that Morgantown Honda there at Fairmont, West Virginia, he rounds out the top 5. Shane Hufford, who we can expect to see lots of great things out of aboard the number 11 out of Honeybrook, Pennsylvania, runs 6th. Colin May, the 918 out of New Zealand, is 7th. Jedediah Haynes, the number 20 on that Obermeyer Range Riding University Yamaha machine there. He's out of Fairfield, Pennsylvania. Big Sam Evans, the 21 machine. He's running 9th in St. Albans, West Virginia. And the 945 Trevor Barrett from Charlotte, North Carolina. XC2 Pro Lights top 10. Open A class, it's Zach Brown, the number 512 out front. In 2nd spot, the number 30 is Bob Dunlap. 3rd place in the Open A division, the 534 of Casey Leatherman. As we look to 4th place now, the 75 is Zach Hayes. In 5th spot, the 333 of Hunter Williams. 6th place Open A is Brandon Higgins, the number 897. In the 7th place position, it is the 310 of Jared Jordan. 8th spot, the 78 Timothy Murphy. 9th place Tanner McCoy, the 408. And 10th spot, my good buddy, Factory Field, 45 years old, dude. Went last year. He'd been racing the Vet 30 Plus class, captured a couple championships in that, and didn't train so much in the offseason going into the 13 season. So he decided, well, I'm going to step up to the 40 plus class. It was amazing how many of those 40 plus guys were calling him a sandbagger and a cherry picker and all that. So Phil decided to raise the bar. Didn't even train so much this year. just kept growing his hair out. If you know Phil, man, he's got some wild hair. But that 45-year-old said, I'm going to go back out here and race with these kids again. And he's running 10th place right now as we're at the halfway point of this. So way to go, Factory Phil Smith on that AOMC Max's Back KTM.
Impressive, for sure.
Yeah, we actually did a feature on him last year here on RacerTV. I think when we were at the St. Clairsville race at Powerline Park last year, and just a heck of a guy, no doubt about it. 250A class now. These are the guys battling for the top amateur overall spots right now. Once again, Craig DeLong and Austin Lee, 9 seconds apart at the finish line. That tightened up, though, as they made it to the pits there just a few moments ago. They're due in actually, it is checked in a moment ago, so that is a legitimate time. They are now 9.3 seconds apart. Matthew Nix, Marietta, South Carolina, checking in with his third lap. 3 minutes and 13 seconds behind those guys. So those guys are on rails today. Looking for Dylan Beam in 4th, Mark Fortner in 5th, Alex B. Roth in the number 6 spot, Caleb Haynes in 7th, Spencer Burke in 8th, Derek Gravitt in 9th, and Mason Atherton to round out your top 10 250A class. The 200A class, Logan Papool out of Cadiz, Kentucky, the number 56, enjoying less than a second lead after 2 laps over the 369 of Taylor Johnson. Johnson and Papool both on KTMs, both on rails out there. It looked like Papool turned a 35-39, about 4 seconds slower lap than Johnson. So if he can rise back to the occasion there, man, this one still might be going nose to tail, wheel to wheel right now. John Snow, the 374 out of New Cumberland, West Virginia. Almost said his name was a bad word there, but we're in spring now, so I can say Snow without sweating it too bad. But 3rd place there for John Snow. 4th place, the 384 Michael Pillar. 208, 5th place, 339 Clint Masters. Good buddy of mine from back in my hometown, Brandon Gearing, the 917, who started out the season, was planning on being in Florida, but had a little bit of an illness, a mishap jumped up on him, and he had to sit out the first couple of rounds. But Brandon and his dad and his brothers are all back, and they're racing and enjoying it. Nick Mellinger, the 7th place position, riding the 196 in 8th spot, the 981 Jonathan Johnson, 9th place, the 141 Christopher Venditti, and rounding out the top 10, the 76 of John Hugel Jr. As we look next at the 4-stroke A-lights, Josh Lee, Alex Teagard, Jake Froman, your top 3 there. As we look at the gaps, only 21 seconds between 1st and 2nd. But we're a minute and 6 seconds back to Froman in the number 3 spot. Brady Myers back in the number 4 spot, and only 2 seconds behind him was Cole Kirkhoff at the end of lap number 2. 6th place, as we take a look at the Mid-State Chevy Midway report here in the 4-stroke A-lights class, Luke Parsons holding on to that position with Ryan Ballou now in 7th. I believe Ballou might have been out in the front of this class in the early part of it. 8th spot, Andrew France running there aboard the 983. Alex Wachowski, the 579 in 9th, and Aaron Coxon rounded out your top 10. As we look to the Vet A 30+ now, Curtis Ryan, 658 out of Fairdale, Kentucky, holding on to only a 4.5 second lead over Alexandre Legault. He's a Canadian rider, so we've got a Kentuckian and a Canuck going at it here today. Only 4 seconds separating those guys, but it looks like Ryan had actually made the pass on Legault, but they have been battling virtually wheel to wheel since the drop of the green flag on that one. Wesley Triplett, the 420, running in the number 3 spot. Shotgun Sean Remington, who I thought was going to grab the whole shot in this one today, is back in the number 4 spot. John Beaver, the 380, is 5th. Matt Boston in 6th. James Steiner, that's Big Jim Steiner, man. Good buddy of mine, is about 5 foot tall. That's why I call him Big Jim. He is Big Jim, though. He's got a son named Little Jim, but Little Jim's a lot bigger than he is. But Big Jim right now running in the 7th place position in this Vet A class. Another 40-plus individual. He's raced in the Open A class quite a bit in different classes. Good to see him out. He actually grabbed the whole shot in this, if I remember right, back in this Vet A class. So way to go, Big Jim, running a good race. Joe Kessler back on the number 8 spot. In 10th place, Brian Hollingshead. Actually, that's 9th place, Brian Hollingshead. And that Hollingshead's back from my home county out of Wellston, Ohio. And I've seen Brian grow up riding a lot of the southeastern Ohio races for sure. Senior A 40-plus class, Doug Blackwell, also he's out of Parkersburg, West Virginia, but to me, that southeastern Ohio is a former national hare scrambles champion. Blackwell, also a former top GNCC star back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Josh Scott running in 2nd place of the Senior A class. Patrick Tobin is 3rd. John Leonard in 4th. Roger Guthrie rounds out your top 5. Steve Mullen in 6th. Todd Vess is 7th. Kenny Hawkins in 8th. Frank Tussle in 9th. And John Chambers rounds out your top 10. And that's the A classes. We'll go to the B classes now. Ryan Edmond out of Morgantown, West Virginia, 2-minute 13-second lead, man. He's flogging it out there today with Andrew Bolton back in the number 2 spot. Zachary Beverly running in third. Jordan Burkhart is fourth. Jared Fortner is in fifth. Michael Hall runs sixth. Austin Kennedy is seventh. Ty Anderson running in the 8th spot. Dustin Stanley ninth. And Bradley Chapman rounds out your top 10 Open B riders. 250B, Cope Beckert in the number 1 spot, only a 12-second lead over Colin Keegan. Back behind them, almost 2 minutes now, is Joshua Catch. Catch is leading Ryan McManus, who is 4th, Nicholas Johnson in 5th, Jojo Bowden is 6th, Keith Mitchell in 7th, Landon Lynn in 8th, Chase McCullers 9th, and Zach Perry rounds out the top 10 250B. It is 200B, William Ruckle, Braden Moore, Russell Smith, your top 3, Dawson Dunnick in 4th, Neheima Buckholtz in the number 5 spot, and Zachary Hugel rounding out the 6 riders in that 200B class. Get this, 2 minutes 41 seconds between first and second, and another 3 minutes 19 seconds back to third place. Looks to me like these guys have got their positions pretty much dialed in on this one. 4-stroke B class, Braxton McGee leading there, 1 minute and 4 seconds over Garrett Duncan. Third place is Justin Leonard. Josh McDonald runs in 4th. Hunter Ayers in 5th. Trey Jefferson is 6th. Christopher McManus running in 7th. 8th spot, Eric Hubert. 9th place, Matthew White. And 10th place is Dakota Sims. Looking now at the Vet B class, Daryl Schlabach leading William Lackey. 1.2 seconds. Those guys, actually Lackey closing up the gap, turning about a 7 or 8 second faster lap that time around than Schlabach. That ought to be a good one when they check in about 23 minutes for their third lap complete. Scott Dallin running in the number 3 spot. Randy Wright is 4th. David George in the number 5 position. Nathan Wallace, 681, is 6th. 371, Marshall Fowler is running 7th. Then we got Clint Griffin, the 378. David Jend is running 9th, and he rides at 726 and 643. Mike Cockman rounding out the top 10 in the Vet B class. And final class we'll take a look at, I believe, is the Senior B 40-plus class. Michael Bryant's got a minute and 15-second lead over Scott Campbell, has 15 seconds over third place Michael Beckett. Tommy Wilson running in 4th, John Kohler in 5th, Darren Venditti in 6th, Ed Chaplin in 7th, and Paul Barkhurst the 2nd. He runs in 8th place. That's our Senior B 40-plus, and that is our Mid-State Chevy Midway Report. That's the way it looks at the halfway point of our 3 laps of racing here today. And man,
I don't know how you do that,
Brian.
That is very impressive.
Thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate it. And you know, something I want to remind everyone is we'll be taking a look and analyzing some things here in just a moment, but you at home are analyzing as well. And you know, you've got your ideas, you've got your opinions, and why not throw them out there? Let us know who you think is going to pull it out of the hat here today. If you do so, you could possibly win $250 in Amsoil product. You can tweet your podium finish predictions to hashtag them at GNCC Live, the hashtag GNCC Live there, and we'll bring those all together. We will pick the winner at random. You don't have to be right, Brian. It's just a matter we just want you to play, man, and we want to give you a chance to win some great Amsoil product, which I love, man. I just got that. My whole system is converted over to Amsoil, and talk about making a difference. It does. And I was talking to Robert Bryan over here, who is the local Amsoil distributor. He says he's got a Sprinter van over there. He's had, I think, for like 6 or 8 years. He said he's changed the oil in it twice.
Whoa.
Yeah, every 3 years. 60,000 miles between oil changes.
It sounds like some pretty good oil.
It is. And the thing about it is they only suggest 25,000 miles, but they have additives. They have ways to test the viscosity and stuff. And if it's lasting longer, you can use it for as long as you want, man. The stuff virtually, seemingly never wears out. But yeah, if you don't believe me, man, go over and find out for yourself. See Robert Bryan and the boys over, and anybody at Amsoil, and check out all the great things going on with our friends First in Synthetics. Brian Pierce here once again with us from Seat Time.
Yep.
And that is a seattime.co is a great show, I think.
We'll call it a web show.
Web show that really helps enhance the off-road world and giving us an opportunity to look a little deeper into the personalities of these off-road riders, and that's what we like about things like that, Brian. And it's great to see those kind of things happening. And I know you get a chance to talk to a lot of them. We got Caleb, we got Charlie, we got Josh, we got Andrew, and Jordan, and all those guys battling it out right now in the top 5, man. But let's talk about this. You've been watching this. You've been analyzing GNCC racing for quite some time, and I know you've probably been listening to the first half of the race with Johnny and I talking about all the things we've been talking about. But what's your perspective on this, man? I mean, what are you seeing from your point of view in the different places you were able to be out there, man?
Well, what I've noticed is how well Charlie Mullins was able to get out front, and it looked like he was going to try to do checkout Charlie. He really did look like he was starting to pull away from everybody. But then we saw Caleb Russell start to catch up, get into second place, and he started to reel Charlie back in. And then we got to see him pass him. And now that he's in first, Russell's in first, and Mullins is in second, it's kind of like, how is it going to change up? Where are we going to go from here?
I just came up with a really corny saying on that whenever you were saying to catch up. Caleb was catching up.
Catch up
Caleb and check out Charlie.
I love it. Well, that's pretty perfect. Because you got to say, that guy can dig deep.
Yeah.
It's impressive what he can do with that 350. A lot of people would say, Mullins has the CC. He's going to have the more power. It's sure, yeah, the bike has more power, but it's not just about the bike. There's so much more about the rider and how they ride the bike.
It is, and like we say, though we probably don't have that true single track section out here, we do have some tight sections of racetrack.
It's tight single track. I got to ride it early.
It is single track. Okay,
tight
well,
single track.
I know we've seen that single track here before, and we've seen it change the face of this race on more than one occasion. And late in the race, it certainly could do that, and that's whenever it did it. I think about 3 or 4 years ago, if memory serves me correct. So pretty interesting, pretty cool. I think so, man. So
yeah.
So Russell out front, Mullins in second, Josh Strang in third, DeLong is fourth. Now there's a rider we've seen really picking up some major paces there, and not only that, he made up a lot of ground in a short amount of time, as he was able to move from just right around the top 10 into now 4th place position at the halfway point. That's pretty impressive, and not to say that it's not inconceivable to think that rider can do it, but what it shows is just how true and how deep and how big a heart and passion that Andrew DeLong brings to him from the XC2 Pro Lights class into the XC1 Pro class.
Yeah, and we've seen, if you notice his results in the earlier part of the year between GNCC and National Enduros, they haven't been, I don't think what a lot of people were expecting from Andrew DeLong. He seemed like he should be more up in the front. He's been doing a lot of testing with that new Husky. And they've been making a lot of changes and talking to them about the chance to, change out some of the throttle body, really doing a lot of testing. They're now running those neck-in, the SFS triple clamps, which are actually a dampened triple clamp, and he loves them. He's really enjoying those. Mike Brown is running those as well. So a lot of little changes I think we're starting to see affect how well DeLong is able to perform now.
Wow. And good insight and good perspective in that one as well. And then my question on you, I know you're a big motorcycling enthusiast. What about Ryan Sipes, man? These motocrossers, they come in here, and we've seen a lot of them with success over the years. Fred Andrews, Rodney Smith, Mike Brown, we've seen good success out of him. Mike Krajowski, if you go back in the day a little bit, Steve Hatch. A lot of guys have transitioned well over from the motocross side of things. It's been a while since someone has done it, though. Ryan, kind of like probably one of the first ones in a few years of memory serves. Hey, something's going on down in the pits of Thad Duvall right now as we check into the Morgantown Honda pits.
Oh, his helmet's off, too. So.
Uh-oh, that's not a good sign. And, man, what a heartbreaker there.
Well, they were my 3rd place for the day. That's unfortunate.
Well, they are working on it. Thad's even grabbing some T-handles himself right now, so whatever it is, it looks like something. There doesn't seem to be a big sense of urgency, but they do look like they're going to try to get in there and figure out what the problem is and see if they can get him back on the track. Now, what I didn't see, and maybe one of our spotters can fill us in there. Now, did Thad ride that bike in, or did he push that bike in?
That's very good. Who knows? Yeah, if he pushed that bike in,
he's going to have to go all the way back out wherever it was he pushed it from, and then start from there. So he could be even farther behind the 8 ball in that circumstance. So depends. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what old bad Thad decides he's going to do here, and if he can get his problems fixed.
Yeah, it's interesting that you were talking about Ryan Sipes and to see like how he's going to develop as a GNCC, an off-road racer. I think it's interesting that he's not afraid to be out here. I think a lot of other people have come, like Zach Osborne. He's come out, he's done a couple,
right.
And he's talked about maybe doing this later when he retires. But Ryan Sipes is out here, and he's a part of it now. He's really embraced the GNCC community and off-road racing, and I think it's fantastic. Is he having the season that he expected to have? I don't think so. I think he thought he was going to come out with a little bit more a little bit more competitiveness.
Yeah, and I think I think that's a misconception that a lot of motocrossers get. They think, and not taking anything away from them, because the sport that they do obviously is a high demand sport.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what they do is literally very challenging, but it's different.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot different. It's a world of difference, and unless it's something you grew up doing at that kind of level and that kind of pace, man, it's really hard to match those kind of things. And not saying that you can eventually. There goes the leaders right there now, and at the 11th mile marker, so they're still nose to tail there, first and second anyway. I'm not sure how far back our third place position right is of Strang. I know we were looking at 25 seconds at one point, and it's looking like it could very well be that once again. No, it could be a little bit tighter.
All right.
Yeah, so he could have. It's right in that range, right around 20 seconds. I didn't get an actual full lead out. By the way, Thad Duvall did ride his bike into the pit, so we got the word in from our spotters out there. They said whenever he came in, he was pushing down on the back seat, the rear fender kind of. Looks like a rear shock issue that they're going to try to work with there, and that's exactly what we're seeing those guys do down there. We see Chad Duvall, which is his pops down there, trying to help him out, and we see everybody's got their mind and their heart into this one, trying to get that young man back out on the racetrack.
Yeah. It's when we were talking about Ryan Sipes too, it's interesting that if you watch he has chapter 2, so the second chapter of his racing life that he is starting to do with Verb Moto. He talks about how in that first Florida round, how he felt like he was performing awesome. He did not expect to be up there challenging in the top 3 for a little bit. But it was when he ran into that third hour that he said that it just kicked his butt. And he didn't expect it to take that much out of him.
Right.
And so it's when they train for those 30 minutes plus 2 laps, it's a different way to train for the 3 hours.
Right, and it's rather funny that you bring that up there, Brian Pierce, because right now, if you look at our race clock, we are approaching 2 hours, as a matter of fact.
That 2 hour mark.
1 hour, 59 minutes, and 55 seconds is what we're looking at. So we are officially 2 hours into this race. Now, did Ryan Sipes just hit a wall?
I don't know.
We'll find out, man. I honestly have to think that he's probably found that little extra half hour at least here in the closing moments. And speaking of closing moments, we got the closing moments of this lap right here, and it looks like things have really picked up. 2 lap boards going to be coming out. According to my calculations, we still have 50 seconds before these 2 are due in, and that means that quite possibly this lap time is about 30 seconds faster. Lap time 30:02 and 30:20 for Mullins and Russell as they check in here at lap 4, 29:59, 30:01. Both those riders picking up their pace some, and the gap now 4.5 seconds between first and second place, and our FMF KTM riders on rails once again here today as our third place ride. Josh Strang now makes his way into the final few turns here.
It looks like Strang has caught up a little bit.
Yeah, let's see. I know we were looking at 25 seconds, 21. So he has gained about 3 seconds on these guys. I think he might have lost a little bit more back in the during this lap, but I think he's made up more. So lap time for him. Ooh, here's something interesting. 29:58. Josh Strang just turned the fastest lap right there. So,
fastest lap right now was the KR4 or Arrive and Ride guys, right? They've got the $150.
Yeah.
At the end of the race, whoever has the fastest lap.
We still got to do some calculations, but already, man, Josh Strang on fire right now. Andrew DeLong will be checking in with him. And, of course, we got Caleb Russell, Mullins, and Strang are the only ones in so far, but we're waiting on Andrew DeLong and Jordan Ashburn, who were about a minute back. And I tell you, man, Brian, it's really been a lot of fun talking to you and getting your insight on this, to be honest with you. I've never had the opportunity to meet with you, as I believe that's an amateur rider, but never had the opportunity. I have caught a couple of episodes of Seat Time, busy individual, and I love what you're doing over there, man. That's exactly what the folks need. And love having you here as a part of the show today, man. It's been a lot of fun working with you and everything. And I look forward to what you have to offer the off-road racing community in the future, man.
Cool. Well, I hope more people can find us at seattime.co to tune in for the show. We wouldn't have been able to be at this GNCC if it weren't for the guys over at KR4 Performance doing the Arrive and Ride. Our producer raced to the UTVs yesterday. I raced in the AM program today. We have loved our first real race GNCC experience. So please, anybody out there that's thinking about doing this, go out there, find your way to any GNCC. We would say a KR4 Arrive and Ride is awesome, but whatever you can do, if you've ever wanted to come to a GNCC, being that I've now finally raced one, it's awesome. I'm going to do it again, and yeah, I'm super stoked on it. So it'll be fun to talk to everybody on Tuesday night when we go live to talk about their GNCC experiences, our experiences, and kind of see what kind of mischief we can get into online as we go to Seat Time Live.
I like it. So we still haven't checked. Yeah, we do have a check-in now from Andrew Delong, now 2 minutes and 13 seconds. And, of course, with that, we're going to take a quick break again. Thanks to Brian, and we'll be back to wrap up these final 2 laps of this Big Buck GNCC right after this.
Awesome.
Sometimes you come across something so different, you just have to stop and check it out. The Rocky Mountain ATV MC website has everything you need, from our huge selection of apparel and gear to dirt bike accessories and OEM parts. Our extensive inventory
.375 degrees, and low vapor pressure means the coolant stays in the engine. Randy Hawkins of the Ampro Yamaha team has been using it for 5 years. In fact, you'll find Evans in the radiators of most top GNCC machines. Go to evanscooling.com for more, or visit their Facebook page for the latest. It's up to 40% lighter and 3 times more durable than standard steel. Teamed with the Power Drive countershaft sprocket and Works triple guard sealed ring chain, you've got unbeatable performance and durability. Sunstar drives Ryan Sykes, Thad Duvall, Adam McGill, Jared McClure, and many others. Watch for them on the podium all year long.
Folks, whenever you want to look at and welcome yourself to total domination and building yourself as a legend, you want to look to Amsoil, the first in synthetics. And, of course, whenever you're there at Amsoil, be sure and check out the EBR 1190 RX machine, as we're building legends now through November 10th. Qualified contestants can enter to win their own 2014 EBR 1190 RX, courtesy of Amsoil. The official drawing will take place on December 1st, and people can register to win EBR 1190 RX at amsoilracing.com/building legends, or on the Amsoil Facebook page, or on the site here at the GNCCs and ATV National Motocross, a Torque Series race, also Monster Energy, Supercross, Amsoil, and even Loretta Lynn's. We're going to have that thing down there to showcase, and and maybe one of those lucky folks from there will be able to pick up and win that from Amsoil, the first in synthetics. And man, I tell you, folks listening at home, if you can't get out here and sign up firsthand, get online and do so. And online you are today for sure, and you are watching what I think is another great edition of our Big Buck GNCC, as we are at the 3.5 mile marker. And right now I believe we, correct me if I'm wrong, waiting on our leaders to check through this portion of the racetrack, where we had Russell Mullins and Strang. DeLong 2 minutes and 13 seconds back and forth. Ryan Symes checking in on the number 5 spot. Jordy Ashburn drops to 6th. 7th is Ricky Russell now, as that young XC2 Pro Lights now rider is showing some great strength in the XC2 Pro Lights class. Grant Baylor has gotten into the number 2 spot. We told you that he was running a little faster lap time than both these guys, but as we look at it, he's about 54 seconds now behind, and his lap time actually dropped 17 seconds slower than, we're at the 3.5 mile marker. Caleb Russell nearly by himself. There comes finally Charlie. So
he's definitely stretched it out a little bit since we saw him at the finish line.
Yeah, he has.
So in 3.5 miles, it looks like he's pulled out somewhere in the neighborhood of another 5-7 seconds.
Well, we saw him catch up quite a bit of time during that same 3.5 mile section. There's Strang, and I got to wonder if Strang might be catching up on that too, because there was 22 seconds between he and Charlie, and that looked like that might have been tightened up. So I'm thinking that both the first and third place rides of Russell and Strang are keeping a pretty good pace. Maybe Charlie's starting to play a few mind games with himself out there. And we talked about this early in the show, with Caleb Russell having the momentum coming into this one, the 2 race wins, Charlie wanting to break that streak that he had going on, and now this could be late in the race, with an hour left to go. The 2-lap board is out. Charlie, I'm sure, is probably trying to think and do a lot of things in his mind about, well, number one, trying to stay consistent, trying to stay up, trying to keep that pace, and then number 2, trying to figure out how he's going to get around Caleb before that checker flag flies. And we've been seeing this great racing today in this XC1 and all the way, actually, going through that Mid-State Chevy halfway report there a few moments ago. You could tell we got a lot of great competition throughout the entire field. We even had some great racing this morning. We had youth, and we also had some WXC women's class racing, and what an amazing race today. Jessica Patterson, who made her way into the off-road racing world in the Infab Ampro Yamaha team in 2013, is really starting to show a lot of strength now here in 2014. Actually got a great start today, nearly grabbed the early lead, but when it was all said and done, the checkers come out. JP Money, she got the money today.
I'm joined here by today's WXC champion, Jessica Patterson. Jessica, we're here in South Carolina. It's somewhat of a home state for you, so it's got to feel like pretty good to have this big win here.
Yeah, definitely. I moved here this year, and it's been awesome. Everybody in Traveler's Rest has been very, very awesome to me. It's given me all the opportunity I've needed to succeed. And today, just being able to win in front of the hometown, I guess now, so it's been really cool.
That's got to feel weird to say. I know you have a lot of competition, Casey Martinez and everybody else in the WXC class. So you guys had some pretty good battles today out there.
Yeah, definitely. I had an awesome start, and I just let her by. And I'm still trying to learn some things, so I figured the best way to do is just kind of follow her around a little bit. And I've seen some places that I could obviously make up a little bit of ground. I made a mistake, but I was able to get back pretty quickly and gain the ground back and had opportunity to pass her, so went for it and just kind of rode my race out from there. So I'm just glad it all worked out really good, and I'm glad we finally had a dry race.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's been a long time coming for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And there's another classic case of a motocross star making the switch over to GNCC, not saying anything at all about JP Money and her efforts and her results in last year, but I think especially it was kind of a false sense of security for her coming into 2013 whenever she won so convincingly in Florida, in the sands of Florida at round number 1. And then obviously the true test of an off-road racer came the weeks following that, and she met some challenges. But what I think is most impressive about that, Johnny, is not that she only found those challenges and she met them. A lot of those challenges she has conquered, and she is getting better every time the race goes on. And what a great learning experience for her today. You saw what happened. She got the whole shot. She let Martinez by, learned a few things off her, keyed off of her. So probably a pretty good day today for JP Money in a lot of different levels, not just the win, but also probably capitalizing on a lot of great experience today.
Yeah, definitely. I had a front row seat to that battle and running back and forth this morning watching that WXC race. And, Jessica and Casey had a battle going along with, and actually at one point there were 7 riders all battling for the top 3 podium positions, and it was it's really interesting to see, like you said, the mix of, you've got multi-time champion Mandy Maston, who's in there, who ended up in 4th place position, just a couple seconds off of the podium today. You had obviously Jessica getting the win, Casey Martinez with a strong 2nd place finish, and there was a number of other girls out there battling today. Sarah Baldwin, Ashley Copeland, Rachel Guttish, Becca Sheets, they were all in there battling for those podium positions, and it's amazing how hard those girls push each other. And I was actually out watching over in the field section right around the 6-mile marker, and at one point there was 5 riders that came through nose to tail battling at the 2-lap card. So I can't give these girls enough credit, how hard they push each other, how hard they work, and got to feel good for Jessica to get a win against such amazing competition out there. And all those girls, like I said, are just, it's impressive. I'm glad I don't have to race against them, that's for sure.
2 hours and nearly 12 and a half minutes into this Big Buck GNCC here on a beautiful sunshiny Sunday as we come to you on GNCC Live from Union, South Carolina. Rodney Tom along with Johnny Gallagher. Jen Kenyon, as I like to call her because she's been on the spot today. Jenny on the spot. I think she's out trying to get some intel and information on what happened with Bad Thad and the rear shock issue out there and see whether or not or what their conclusion was of that. But man, what a great day and a great race to cover as well, as we've seen a lot of great changes over and over, a lot of cool things. And Jen Kenyon is standing by now with Chad Duvall in the Thad Duvall pits.
That's right, Chad. We saw Thad come in. The camera watched as you guys worked on that bike. It looked like a rear shock. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, he come up MIA there, and finally come in, and he said that shock was gone, and it just got so hot and overheated, and just kind of it don't really blow or leak oil. It just gets so hot that it just fades out. So he said it was kind of bucking him around pretty bad. So we went ahead and put a fresh one on there and back out.
You know, the pit crew here under the Ride MPS Amsoil tent, you guys are always hard at work. We know, we watch Thad ride. We know he rides those bikes really hard. Do you think that, you know, some of these issues, obviously you guys have a lot of great sponsors behind you, but Thad is just, he's like gung-ho on that bike. Do you think that has something to do with some of the mechanical issues that you guys encounter?
Yeah, you know, I mean, we were riding a small bike, so he's actually pushing that thing super, super hard to stay with the big bores. So, and, you know, today it's really fast, it's really hot, and the track's really chopped up. I heard all the quad guys saying how chopped up it was. Normal people really don't get into the shock fade like the pro guys do, because they really put them to the limit. So, you know, that once that oil gets so hot, the viscosity just kind of just fizzles out, and then it just comes to just a spring.
Yeah, you know, the one thing about Thad, though, he's right there. He's excited. As soon as you guys get something fixed, he wants to go back out there and ride despite any of the positions he lost or whether or not he's in that top 20 overall. It seems like he's got that mentality this year and a lot of last year that it doesn't matter. He just wants to go out, finish the race, and ride his dirt bike.
Yeah, you know, he enjoys riding a dirt bike, and it just, you know, that's our motto. If we got to finish race. We might not be in the top 20, but you know what I mean? It's good for your sponsors. It's good for the overall team, you know, just not to throw your hands up and come in and say, I'm done. It's you know, Barry made a comment one time, great champions are, you know, never defeated. You know, they always look around to how to make it happen. So, you know, that's all we can do is put our head down and finish this race out and go home and scratch our heads and figure out what we need to do.
All right, well, we'll definitely keep an eye on Thad. Maybe we'll see him get the KR4 Fastest Lap Award here at the end of the race.
Yeah, that would be nice.
All right, guys.
All right, thanks a lot. Jen Kenyon there down in the Honda pits of Bad Thad Duvall. So good news is he's back out on the racetrack. Bad news is that he probably won't score any points today. Good news for his sponsors is that he's out there, he's trying, and he's showcasing that program that he's worked so hard to build the last couple of years.
Yeah, you know, certainly we've seen, and we mentioned this last year, you know, we've seen a new, there's Caleb checking in our shop. You know, that,
poetry in motion.
One
man.
joke
So,
I used to make about Caleb in the XC2 class, when his jersey was untucked, you might as well just kiss him gone. Because that means he's riding so hard, he's bouncing all over that bike, that jersey comes untucked, and later. So, I mean, that seems to be the case right now. We're seeing he's definitely pulled out a lead on Charlie. We're still waiting here, looking at these lovely Can-Am banners, waiting on Charlie to show up, and there he is. And no question, Charlie's charging, and this race is far from over. But right now, Caleb's got the upper hand, and he's putting the wood to it.
Yeah, but Charlie's shirt's still tucked in. So
yeah, well, Charlie. Oh, Josh Strang.
Wow, what was that? 10 seconds, if
Not
that.
even. Yeah,
it couldn't have been.
He can see him at this point in the fields, and that's a big. I mean, you might as well just go ahead and hang the big, nice, rare steak out for the dog, because Josh he's going to be trying to chase down Charlie. Obviously, Charlie's not going to give up that spot without a fight. But you know, Josh is the man on the move right now, and Caleb's stretching that lead out front. So, you know, you have to wonder. We can bench race here, and we can say, did Charlie possibly expend a little bit of energy early that he hasn't been able to recoup? Was it just a matter of, you know, maybe he's just not feeling as comfortable as Caleb is today? You know, there's a number of things. Obviously, you know, he's already won races this year. There's no question about his speed and his fitness, but right now Caleb's the man that's putting it all together for today. But it's backing up here real quick, talking about Jen gave us that great insight on Thad Duvall with the rear shock issues he's experiencing, and you heard Chad say these pro guys, they experience mechanical issues or shock fade issues that the average rider doesn't. I really don't think that people understand. At home you might look and say, well, everybody's going across the same track. I don't understand why it is that one rider's shock might fade more, or the top XC1 riders might have a little bit more bike issues with certain things that would be fine for most riders, even top A riders. Over the years, we've done a lot of shock testing, and we had some onboard telemetry that actually measured shaft speed, which is the amount at which the shock moves per second. And we've seen shaft speeds on the ATV, and I'm sure these guys, they're running similar linkages. Everything is very similar, the speed at which they're hitting things. We've seen shock speeds in excess of 2,000 inches per second. Oh my God! Which is ridiculous. I mean, that's far and above and beyond anything that you would see in Formula One or anywhere that they talk about shock fatigue. Even more so than Supercross. We have spike blows here where you don't have that on Supercross track. These guys will be running 50 mile an hour at maximum speed and then hit a square edge bump that's going to completely compress their suspension. It's insane what that does to oil. So unfortunately, that's a little gremlin that's jumped up and bitten Thad today, but no doubt they'll go home, do some testing, get it figured out, and come back stronger for the next round.
We're watching footage right now from the 3.5 mile marker. This is the FMF PowerPoint.
That was the amateur overall 27 of Craig DeLong on his Husky wheeling up the hill there. So he's looking good out there, and we should probably see 1, 2, 3 of Austin Lee. He's soon behind him there, so those two are battling.
I always liked how that rhymes since he was in the youth ranks, man. 123 Austin Lee, and every time I see 123, I don't care what 1, 2, 3 always makes me think of him. So that's a great number and a great rider too. Austin is really done a great job there.
And there he is with the Mohawk. He's carried that over from his youth days. He's says the pit crew can use that to pick him out. So
hey, whatever it takes sometimes, to know where your riders are and feel comfortable about that. Sometimes that's what riders have to do. And it looks like a lot of the fan base has started to disappear from this hill climb section, Johnny. I think.
Well, there's a reason for that. Those guys are coming to the finish line.
Exactly.
They know that depending on what happens here in this next lap or so, if Charlie can really grab himself another handle on this race and drop the hammer, he could potentially challenge for this win. Obviously, Caleb far from has this in the bag, even though he has pulled out, maybe a 12 to 15 second lead, give or take. And if not, we might see a battle over that second place position with Josh Strang. So I'm sure all of our spectators out there are working their way down to the finish line chicanes to see some battle. I mean, last race we saw Thad Duvall and Stu Baylor, worked their way through those final finish line chicane, and Thad was able to make the pass for the 4th place spot just inches before the finish line. So the GNCC racing truly isn't over till it's over.
It isn't, and it's been like that since these kids have been in the youth ranks. I was sitting here thinking about this, man. I mean, we've watched all these kids grow up, and they've always given us these types of exciting kind of rides, man. I mean, from the youth classes into the amateur classes, now into the professional ranks, and there's another crop of young riders that's kind of doing the same thing. And man, we had a great battle today. Cole Madison, man, putting together another spectacular ride here at the Big Buck GNCC.
Cole Madison, this is your first youth overall here this year in 2014. Not to mention your home state of South Carolina. That's got to feel pretty good.
Oh yeah, I really like this track compared to last year, which last year I had the flu, so this year's much better.
It's probably pretty sweet to do it in front of your friends and family here.
Oh yeah, definitely.
How was the race conditions out there?
It was really fast, but then they had some of the bike-only sections that got really tight, so you'd go from 4th gear pin straightaways to 1st and 2nd gear putting through. So
his first win of the season, but I think this kid has the potential to win more.
And we see Chris Bach coming from somewhere other than where he should be, checking into the
pro pit. We got another oil shock issue going on there? I don't know.
Yeah, you can see there. It doesn't appear that he's in a real hurry. They may have some issues that are irreconcilable with that machine. Yeah. So unfortunate for him. He was running a top 10 position, and seems like he's maybe been, just a click off with something all day today. So that might be something that they're going to continue to work on, maybe get him back out there. He was still running solidly inside the top 20, so maybe he can get back out there and still earn some points. But unfortunate day for him for sure in that Rockstar JCR Honda team.
7 minutes and 40 seconds due before our leaders are here at the finish line. Caleb Russell, Charlie Mullins, Josh Strang, 1, 2, and 3. Another 2 minutes plus back and forth. Andrew DeLong, Ryan Sipes in 5th, Jordan Ashburn in 6th. Chris Bach was 7th, so we saw him pull into the pits now. That should move Paul Whibley up into 7th, Jason Thomas into 9th or 8th. 9th then should be Stu Baylor, and Takeshi Koiketa should get the 10th place position now if things remain that same. As we said, doing a little more than 7 minutes. Taking a look at the XC2 Pro lights, 14:26 is when we should be seeing Ricky Russell checking in, but check this out. Remember, we talked about the lap times. Actually, Russell turned a faster lap time that time around than Baylor. The lap before, it was Baylor that was turning such amazingly fast lap times, but 54 seconds between first and second of Russell and Baylor. Trevor Bollinger, Russell and Baylor. That sounded weird, but it's two different Russells. Ricky Russell and Grant Baylor.
Yeah, we have to clarify first.
Wow, this is going to get confusing.
Ricky Russell and Caleb Russell.
You get all
Grant
four
Baylor and what if the four of those guys
exactly.
are battling for the top 4?
No,
and we've got a podium. We've got a podium battle between Baylor, Russell, and Russell.
Man, that's good. That's going to be.
Let's hope that never happens because our head might explode trying to sort it all out. But
in a way, I kind of do hope it happens.
It definitely would be cool. But and a lot of those guys you just mentioned, Ricky Russell. All these guys came up, whether it be here at GNCC or somewhere else around the country, came up through the youth ranks. And one thing I really want to mention is, as we saw that interview with Cole Madison, today's overall youth winner, man, look at how many youth riders there are out there. And,
wow.
And what a statement that makes about the future and the strength of GNCC racing. Around the country you hear about, recession, and you hear about things that are, not on the upticks for off-road motorsports or for the economy in general. But, man, GNCC racing is not only alive and well, it's thriving. These young riders are coming in droves, and that was, just one row of more than 10 that took off, and those bikes were just lined up deep. And we see Chris Bach. It doesn't appear like he's going to be able to get back out, but they're doing something to the appears the forks on that machine. So, again, you might have hit the nail on the head with the suspension issues. And here's Caleb Russell checking through the pro pits with that lead. Wife Chandler hands him off the bottle, so he's going to get a little drink. And he's just a scant 2 miles from checking in for a white flag. And what a welcome sight that's going to be for Caleb after a long day of charging. And let's see what kind of a lead we have here. Charlie Mullins should be checking in next, followed by Josh Strang. And those two probably are going to be relatively close together based on what we've seen with the fluctuation of the gap the last lap or so here. Seems that Strang's closing in on Mullins, and here we've got Mullins now. So you can see the left side handguard is bent up, so that might indicate a little bit of
issue there. Yeah.
Oh, and the right side's bent up a little bit as well. So
Charlie might have had a couple of issues there.
Well, I did hear that they've got an enduro section. And Charlie's reaching up and making some adjustments to those handguards on the fly. Can't slow down a champion like Charlie. He's going to get that machine sorted and back on the gas. And now we've got Josh Strang. So that gap appears to have stabilized a little bit. Doesn't look like Strang made up any more time since we saw him last. So, with the tight sections that are out there, I walked some of it last night after our race. Went out and checked out a couple of the bike-only sections. And those guys are banging handguards through there. So that may not be an issue of going down or anything like that. It might just be some contact with one of these South Carolina pine trees.
2 hours, 26 minutes now into this race, and Chris Bach's pits there, continuing to work down there as we watch here on RacerTV.com and our GNCC live coverage. We're watching the clock as well, as was said, over 26 minutes now into the race, less than 4 minutes away from seeing Russell check in, Caleb Russell check in for a I guess it would be white flag at the end of lap number 5 in this 6-lap race. Charlie Mullins in the number 2 spot. Josh Strang in 4th. In 5th, Andrew DeLong. And Ryan Sipes was in 5th at the last check. Now, one other thing we want to point out, Ricky Russell and Grant Baylor running 7th and 8th overall. They're separated again by nearly 55 seconds. But here's the big news for the folks following the top amateur awards right now. 258 class leader now is up to 18th place position, and we're talking about the 27 of Craig DeLong, the younger brother of Andrew DeLong. I was swallowing.
I'm just helping you out.
No. You're right, because those two, I want to make sure I don't get them mixed up.
Oh, great. Now, in a couple years here, we're going to have another Delong up potentially.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll have.
I think I'm going to retire. I'm going to retire. I'm going to send this. Jen, I got to think about my retirement day. What's going on?
No, Rodney, please don't retire. What would we do without you down here? Hey, so Chris Bach, we saw he just pulled into his pits. It sounds like these guys a lot of these guys are experiencing shock issues because the track is so fast, it's so rough, and we do have some warm weather here. So these guys, their shocks are getting so hot that they're, I don't know what it's doing to them, but it's causing some issues. Chris had a few get-offs there. It got bucked off the bike, so he came in. He knows he's in the running for some points. He just wants to finish solid. So these guys made a couple quick adjustments for him, and he's back off and going, trying to fight for some points here.
All righty, thanks a lot, Jen. Yeah, that's pretty critical for those guys, man. And, it could still happen to somebody else. So, with that being said, 30 minutes or so, a little more left into this, a lot of these Amsoil predictions could, maybe off-the-wall predictions could end up coming true, or who knows, man. I mean, it's pretty crazy. And if you haven't tweeted your Amsoil predictions yet, do so. Make sure and hashtag that GNCC Live so you can pick up a possibility to win $250 from our friends at Amsoil First in Synthetics. 39 seconds now, Johnny Gallagher, that separates first and second place.
39 seconds and 11. Oh, and there's Josh Strang. Maybe did make up just a little bit of time on Mullins. So we're going to have to see how that gap pans out. We should be seeing him check into the finish line here in just a couple of miles. So we were 4.5 seconds between Russell and Mullins. I almost said Rollins there. We're going to start inventing new names for these guys. Between Russell and Mullins at the end of lap number 4. Now this says we're checking in near the end of lap number 5. As you counted on the screen there, 39 seconds. So we've seen a 35-second swing in just 11 miles. So Caleb Russell obviously on the gas. And I heard the comment last race, what is Chandler feeding him? Chandler, his wife, local South Carolina girl here. And, what an amazing performance put in by Caleb today. And like we said, we've still got 30 minutes or more, about 35 minutes of racing left from what it looks like here. But, nothing's over. But, man, Caleb is really putting in a showing here for now.
For sure, and man, I tell you, the local race fans, whether you're local or not, just GNCC race fans in general, man, a lot of fan support out there for Caleb Russell, watching him grow up, and now being from the Carolinas, man, I mean, that brings that much more fan support down here. And whenever you're winning like this and riding like this, man, I mean, you are the man. And, that's one thing I like watching the folks, Brandon Bowling from over at Verb Moto. They're doing a feature again, a continuing feature that started last year. White flag out on this one, but motorsport.com's YouTube channel has a feature, Driven to Win, and I think, I forget what it is called this year, but it's more along the lines of keeping that championship for Caleb Russell. Just some amazing stuff. If you want to get to know Caleb on a personal level, that's a good way to do it, and see what he goes through to become champion. It's pretty amazing. Check out the YouTube channel. Just basically search Caleb Russell, and you should be able to find him, no doubt about it. But so 39 seconds is what we counted a mile or so back. 29:34 lap time last time around. That's why that gap has opened up so hugely there, Johnny. 40.8 seconds, so almost 41 seconds now. Lap time, 30 minutes and 11 seconds. Oh, my gosh, man. I mean, we're talking night and day there, Johnny.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and what we can see there by the lap times is Charlie Mullins did not slow down. His fitness isn't in question here. He's riding.
Same pace as it was at the beginning of the race.
He's actually riding as fast, if not faster, than what he was early in the race. So Caleb's just kind of found another gear here, definitely feeling the flow out on this big buck track. And, Rodney, I never realized how difficult it is to sit here to call these races without sounding biased. Because all these guys I consider to be friends. They're all co-workers, I guess, if you will. Being an XC1 rider on the ATV side, I certainly would never want anyone to root against me or for me unwittingly. But man, it's tough not to be a Caleb Russell fan right now. I mean, what I want to see is I want to see all 3 of these guys. I want to see 10 of these guys battle down to the final turn. So I want to see Charlie reel Caleb in and make it a battle between him and Strang in there as well. But man, I just can't believe what Caleb Russell has done here today.
Just poetry in motion, man. He really is.
And you made the comment off camera at one point that look how fluid he looks, and and here comes our XC2 leader Ricky Russell. And it appears he's got a little battle going on right now with Jason Thomas. So probably using those XC1 guys as kind of a little bit of a pace car, if you will. And there we see, is that Grant Baylor or is that Stu?
That's
Grant. So that battle has definitely tightened up. So those guys should be checking in here in about 2 minutes into the finish line. So we'll see where that gap is.
Last time around, there was 54 seconds that separated.
There's nowhere near 54 seconds now.
No,
that's
not at all.
maybe 15.
Yeah. Maybe.
So
31:20 lap time last time for Ricky Russell, 31:37 lap time for Grant Baylor. I'll be really curious to see what the lap times will be for those two riders this time around.
Well, what we saw there was we saw Ricky Russell coming through the auxiliary pro pits, and we saw him actually let Jason Thomas by. And I'm not trying to read too much into it, but it almost appeared that Ricky Russell gave a little head shake. So he might be experiencing, I don't know if it's fatigue, possibly bike issues. Hopefully not the suspension issues that we've seen with some other riders today, and that should be possibly our third place XC. Yes, it is XC2. That's the points leader, Trevor Bollinger, with the white number plates with the green numbers. So,
can you imagine how pumped up he was coming in?
It looks like he's going to come in and possibly get a little splash of fuel and maybe some fresh goggles. He reached for the strap there. Well, nope, he's going to keep those goggles, get a little water down his back. Obviously, he's, this late in the race, he's certainly warm. He says, hey, quit spraying that on me. Give me something to drink. I'm thirsty. And he's off and currently sitting in the third place position in the XC2 class.
Wow, what an amazing turnaround for that kid. We talked about it last race, just coming to Morganton, North Carolina to race a year ago and got top amateur, and now here he is, one of the top XC2 Pro Lights riders just a year and a race later, man. I mean, pretty amazing
points
stuff.
Leader.
Yeah, points leader. Yeah.
Inverted plates. That's a little bit of a surprise to me, honestly. And not nothing.
And you know what the great thing about that is, man, and I've been thinking a lot, seeing Henry Turner run around here at the Big Buck GNCC and leading into this, man, and if you read my quick fill this week, and I led off with it, man, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Big Dave, a big influence in my life, and especially in the GNCC and things like that, man. I mean, there's people that just got that kind of passion out there that make it. And this particular race right here, man, I was looking so forward to this because I know whenever this series was conceived, Big Dave had the idea that any given person on any given day could come out and win. If you started on the last row, if you started on the first row, if you had the better day, you could come out on top and win. And that's the way that he designed these courses and made stars out of people that would have probably never been a star, and made huge names and household names out of some people just for that. And this is that kind of day that something like that could happen, something out of the blue where somebody that you don't expect to see do it actually pull something like that out of their hat.
Yeah, and just a real quick story from my own personal experience about my beginnings, if you will, in GNCC, or kind of my rise towards the top. I don't think I'm anywhere at the top by any means, but Dave Coombs, the founder of this series, with his wife Rita, and I was his daughter Carrie Jo, kind of taking the reins, and along with Rita still. Many years ago, there was a race in Virginia that we actually had, I believe it was, and it was the end of my rookie season as an XC1 Pro rider. Back then was just the Pro class, but I'll do my best to not kind of get choked up here. But Big Dave left us soon after, but left us in good, capable hands, and as we pulled through the gate, and I think I've told you this story before, he recognized our vehicle pulling in. I was with my dad at the time, and I was locked into a top 10 position in the points for that year. And Dave stopped us as we pulled through and said, "Hey, got something for you," and directed us into the pro pits. At the time, it was the reserve top 10 parking. And although I was number 24 coming out of the A class, he, I think at that point, Dave that was kind of his. I'd grown up through the youth ranks, and that was kind of his message to me. And unfortunately, Dave wasn't around when the next year started, but he's always with us here in spirit. And that, to me, that was a big graduation moment of welcome to the big leagues. And Trevor Bollinger, Grant Baylor, all these guys have gone through that same, stepping up through the youth ranks, and then next thing you know, you're one of the stars, or one of the people, I guess, that the amateur riders, the youth riders are attempting to become or emulate. And it's a pretty awesome feeling, and it's been a lot of years since that happened now, I guess. It's kind of crazy to think, but I guess that was 20 years ago.
Wow, pretty amazing stuff. But, man, his dream still lives through us all, man. I mean, it's amazing how that man planted that seed in so many people out here. And I just love watching his dreams come to fruition. What we're seeing here today, on GNCC live here with RacerTV.com. I mean, how far it's come from just a couple of little box trailers traveling up and down the East Coast with
pickup trucks. There was no box trailers back in the day. It was pickup trucks.
I think Dave might have had a box trailer to carry a little bit of the equipment, maybe a couple vans.
A box trailer or two and some vans was the Racer Productions crew back then, and now it's a traveling carnival of semis and campers and everything else. And
wow,
it's
I just
crazy
got
how it's grown up.
I just got goosebumps.
You know, it's great to see, and in the continued evolution of the sport, we have a former youth champion and former A-class champion, former XC2 champion, Caleb Russell, out leading today's race, and last year's defending champion, and then the previous champion prior to that, Charlie Mullins, in second place. And it's Josh Strang, obviously. There's another thing. When Dave and Rita started this series so many years ago, did they ever envision Josh Strang giving up his life that he knew in Australia and moving to the United States to pursue motorcycle racing, not to pursue motocross and supercross, to pursue a career in GNCC racing? What a true telling of the times it is.
Amen.
That we've got riders, Paul Whibley, Josh Strang, the list goes on and on. It's amazing the caliber of riders that GNCC pulls from all over the world and from all walks of life.
Man, it is amazing, man, and it has grown quite a bit, and I've just sat here and just time warped myself thinking about my last 10 years and how much things have grown. And just since Jen Kenyon came on board a few years ago, it's really grown by leaps and bounds also. And I'll tell you, Johnny, we'll talk about that and see exactly the culmination of what Big Dave's dream has been. What Big Dave's dream has been
here.
Here
at the throttle. Hey, Blackwater 100. There we go. Send it to the top. Let the mud fleas figure it out.
There you go, for sure. We're going to come back here in just a moment. We'll continue our coverage from the Big Buck GNCC here with GNCC Live on RacerTV.com.
Twins have notoriously been very hard on crankshafts because that big long stroke of those two cylinders just flexes the crankshaft around. So we were seeing bearing issues. Research development people at Amsoil could show us design the engine. I just had to do a better quality oil.
Flow with Maxxis tires.
Evans waterless coolant solves your overheating problems. The high boiling point of 375 degrees and low vapor pressure means the coolant stays in the engine and cooling your machine. Randy Hawkins of the Ampro Yamaha team has been using it for 5 years. In fact, you'll find Evans in the radiators of most top GNCC machines. Go to evanscooling.com for more or visit their Facebook page for the latest updates.
And welcome back to GNCC Live as we are live from Union, South Carolina. And, of course, this VP Fuels Big Buck GNCC. Rodney Tomlin again with Johnny Gallagher, Jenny on the spot, Jen Kenyon, and getting some good intel on what's going on out there in the pits right now and what's going on out on the racetrack. Again, Caleb Russell continues to lead. Charlie Mullins, some 40-plus seconds now. Josh Strang starting to close up closer to that 10-second gap now between himself and second place. We could see a battle develop there. Andrew Delong still in fourth place, 3.5 minutes back. in that 4th place position, but still a stellar and
Oh, and
monumental
there's
ride
Andrew
for
Delong
him.
climbing our 3.5-mile hill climb right there. So as we talk about him, he arrives just right on schedule. We knew that was going to happen.
Yep, and Jordan Ashburn, if we waited another minute and 22 seconds or so, we might see Jordy Ashburn come into play of this one as well. But those positions are starting to open up quite a bit. One rider we probably ought to keep an eye out for is Ryan Sipes. Looks like he and Ashburn have been going back and forth for that 5th place position over the course of the last lap and a half or so, and there was only 3 seconds that separated those two when they checked in for lap 5. Whibley, though, man, you remember how much he was struggling, and it seemed like they'd just thrown an anchor out and he was done for the day earlier. Well, I'm not going to say that's the case so much. Don't throw in the towel just yet for Paul Whibley, because I remember you said it. He's going to keep chopping, and he's up to 7th place right now.
And let's take a look at Whibley's lap time there. Whibley's in 7th place, and obviously at this point he's just trying to manage his deficit points-wise. He wants to be in the championship fight to the end. I believe he's 3rd points. But let's look at that lap time: a 30-minute 47-second lap time, as opposed to Jordan Ashburn with a 31:45.
He was over a minute faster than the guys ahead of him right now.
31:55. Whibley really, multi-time champion. Won countless races. He's 35 seconds down, and certainly it's no guarantee, but he is attempting right now at least to reel in Ryan Sipes and also Jordan Ashburn. So he's got his teammate and Ryan Sipes in front of him, and we've kind of switched camera views, so it doesn't look like we're going to get to. Oh, and that was Ryan Sipes, I believe, that just came through. So I don't know if we missed Jordan Ashburn there. We'll have to see here. And we should see Paul Whibley checking in here if he has not already. And that looks to be Paul Whibley there coming through.
Look at that.
It is. And I've gotten a lot of comments about how I saw him through the trees. Paul's easy. He looks like a hunchback because he wears his camelback under his jersey. So, that's a dead giveaway. So that one was pretty easy. But I don't know if we did. I'm assuming that we saw Jordan Ashburn check in there ahead of Ryan Sipes, because with the gap, I don't think he would be this far back unless something had happened. So, but Whibley has definitely chopped away at that, what was 35 seconds. Maybe has that down under 30 now. So, with that minute faster lap time, you have to speculate that maybe he's going to get up in there in that battle over the 5th place position.
Last lap going on right now as we kind of recap what took place here today, Johnny. We are about 15 and a half minutes, if I'm not mistaken. We are lap 5, working on lap 6. No, this is lap 5. We got one more after this, right? No, this is...
White flag is out. This
lap
is
6.
the end of it all.
This is lap 6. Okay, the screen is wrong. We have 5 in the book, so we're on lap number 6 now. There they make that change. Thank you, guys. The recap on this one. Paul Whibley getting off to a strong start. Jordan Ashburn getting off to a strong start. And
here comes our XC2 battle. That was Ricky. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
That was Ricky Russell that just came by the leader. So let's see what we've got for Grant Baylor. Stu Baylor actually came through just ahead of those two, and this is Grant now. So that's, that gap seems to have somewhat stabilized. I don't think he made up too much time on him. Last lap, I think it was down into the teens, if I'm not mistaken. We had a 54-second, and then last lap it was 13 seconds. So I don't think he made up any more time. Maybe stabilized there. Again, Ricky might have reset himself and realized, hey, he's coming. I need to get back to work here if I want this win. Next, we should see Trevor Bollinger checking in the 3rd place spot. And again, he did make that pit stop, so probably lost a little bit of ground there, but still solidly in a podium place position for today. So great run for him, backing up that win in North Carolina, and possibly holding on to that points lead. Now here comes Caleb Russell checking in. That is the 9.5 mile marker, I believe. No, a little earlier than that. But so he's better than half.
It's a 7.
Better than halfway around on this final lap, and still has a comfortable lead, it appears, on Charlie Mullins.
Right.
So, we'll have to see. Oh, and look at these lappers. I mean, this really could play into exactly how this race pans out. But with Caleb with the comfortable lead he has right now, he knows where he's at. He knows how much time he's got to work with, so he can be a little more cautious. When you only have a few seconds to work with, Rodney, especially on that last lap, you have a tendency to get caught up in the heat of the moment, maybe push a pass on a lapper that you shouldn't, maybe push a corner a little too hard, wash the front end. But, Caleb, with this kind of a lead, I think he's probably well within his means to kind of cruise it and, manage his gap. And they're giving him, the KTM crews out there, and they've got a pit board every couple miles, and they're keeping Caleb and Charlie both well versed on where this gap is at. Now Charlie, on the other hand, is just flat out. He wants to go. He still wants to win this race, and he knows Josh Strang is coming behind him. So again, it's a max points day for all these guys. These guys are all three battling for the championship, and they're all three battling for a podium position here today.
Continuing with our Can-Am race recap, as we said, Jordan Ashburn getting off and Paul Whibley and the boys getting off to an extremely good start out there. But it wasn't long, about the 7-mile marker, we were getting reports that Charlie Mullins was up front and had already gone into what we deemed as checkout Charlie mode. In the meantime, riders having some bad starts. We're talking about riders, of course, like Paul Whibley having his struggles. He got the good start, but he had his struggles there somewhere on the first lap. He started falling through the pack. Andrew Delong somewhere right there, just outside the top 10, and also several others that we weren't quite sure what was going on with there in the early part of the race. Things kind of seemed to be a little bit different, but as the race wore on, things sort of kind of started settling into pace. Of course, Ryan Sipes had started out with a top 3 position there, Johnny, in that first lap, and we were speculating there whether or not he was going to be able to hold the pace, if he could, for how long. We talked about the 2-hour mark that seemed to be his limitation there in Florida. We know that he's had some time to train since then, and in reality, though he hasn't kept the pace of the top 3, what he has done is kept an extremely strong pace, and he is gaining more and more respect, I think, in this off-road racing world. And today is another day that he's gained, I think, by leaps and bounds.
Yeah, and I think that we have to see steps out of Ryan Sipes and all these guys that make a transfer from another form of racing or move up from the XC2 class to the XC1 or move from an A class to XC2. You have to take that progression. Learn yourself that you can ride this pace, you can do it for 3 hours, and you can ride with the guys you're racing with. And Ryan Sipes is learning that, this week, that, he had that top 3 speed early and then now settled into, that 5, 6, 7 battle with himself, Jordan Ashburn, and Paul Whibley. I think if Ryan Sipes comes out of this with a top 5, that's a fantastic day for him. Andrew DeLong's kind of settled into that 4th place spot, barring something major. He's about 3.5 minutes behind Strang for that final podium spot, and about a minute and a half ahead of Jordan Ashburn for in the 5th place spot. So I think DeLong's kind of by himself on an island for 4th, but we've got that battle again between Ashburn, Sipes, and Whibley over that number 5 spot. And since we're talking about Sipes, like I said, today would be a big step for him to get a top 5, especially overall. That's an excellent ride. I mean, these are the best riders. And there we see Chris Bach coming through our shot. He's back out and trying to salvage some points on the day today. But with Ryan Sipes, if he can get a top 5, that's certainly going to build not only his confidence, but also some momentum for him and potentially work towards a podium here in the near future, or, what we could assume someday soon could turn into a win.
For sure. And, looking at this roster of riders, Johnny, as far as the race is concerned, we've seen the war of attrition on the machines, and I don't know so much on the individuals themselves with the heat and dust and stuff, but the machines have, for whatever reason, been taking its toll on them today. Riders suffering from some problems out there for whatever reason, but also riders dropping out of the top 10 that we saw in solid top 10 positions, inching toward top 5. Guys like Michael Brown, Chris Bach, Thad Duvall, all having some sort of an issue out there. I know Duvall had the shock issue, the rear shock issue heating up, Bach having the front forks issue with his oils heating up, and I'm not sure what happened to Mike Brown. I know the Husky rider was a solid top 5, top 6 rider there in the first couple of laps, but since about the halfway point of this race, we've seen a major drop-off by that rider, and I know that he's used to doing a lot of the West Coast stuff, and I think that some of those races with the works and things like that are probably a little bit shorter than what our GNCC 3-hour races are, so that might be where we're seeing that difference in Mike Brown also here today at the Big Buck GNCC here on the East Coast.
Yeah, that's one thing that definitely I wasn't necessarily anticipating. I mean, Mike Brown obviously was fast early, and I think he's got the speed, but this is a different type of racing. It would take, he's done well on some races in the past, but today just wasn't his day, but he's still out there, trucking along. He's got 5 laps in and sitting in the, I guess he's only got 4 laps in. So, maybe something did happen there to Mike that has prevented him from finishing that 5th lap. But excellent rider with a with an impeccable resume. So I'm sure
Amen on that.
if he ever comes out and gives it another try, which I'm sure he will, he'll be back up in there battling.
Did you tweet in your Amsoil prediction contest that hashtag GNCC Live with Mike Brown?
I'm pretty sure
on the podium.
I'm pretty sure that I better just not enter because I'd be accused of fixing it after I made off with my bounty.
$250. Congratulations to Noah White 211. That's at KTM_211. He picks Caleb Russell. Well, I guess Russell. It might be Ricky Russell's he's expecting to win.
Hey, that's a good idea. If you go with Russell or if you go with Baylor, you get 2 first.
There you go. So you got Mullins in second, and he picked Duvall for third, and he was one of those that picked Thad. I think saw the momentum that Thad had going on there in the early part of the race. And congratulations to you at KTM_211. Noah White, we will be getting you the $250 from Amsoil, that great Amsoil product. And let me tell you, brother, you're going to love every minute of it. I can promise you that. So 7.5 minutes now, Johnny Gallagher. We'll be seeing these leaders check through in a couple of spots here shortly, as there is the number 7 of Jordan Ashburn. He is your 5th place ride. We're out near that 7.5 mile marker now, that Can-Am zone. So we see him carving his way through the trails. It looks like Ashburn's picked up a second breath of wind out there. We're watching the pro pits now here on RacerTV.com and watching, I believe, for the leaders to possibly be checking in here fairly soon. We don't see a lot of action in the pro pits. There are some guys standing by in case the rider stops in and does need a little bit assistance in their push toward the checkers here. But all in all, it looks like things have settled down. The pace in the pro pits has settled down. They've all geared themselves toward the finish of this race and working over here toward this direction where the Amsoil finish line is located.
Yeah, it's always nerve-wracking, that last lap. I mean, I obviously Caleb's not one to celebrate until he's crossed the finish line, so I can't pretend to have been in his shoes before because unfortunately I've never been leading on. Actually, that's not true. It's been a number of years, but it's been a long time since I was leading on the last lap, and it happened twice, and both times I didn't win the race. So I would not be the expert on the situation, but talking obviously to Chris and Walker and these guys that do win races, you just got to play out every possible scenario in your head, but at the same time just focus on the task at hand. So, that's what Caleb's doing out there right now, working his way towards the finish line. And, there's a lot of obstacles in his way, but he's won however many races he's won at this point, and it's a lot. So
yeah, it is. And it's pretty amazing. And, coming into this one, like you said at the beginning, Charlie really, for if nothing else, his own personal momentum and his own personal confidence really needing to slow Caleb's momentum down right now. Remember last year, Caleb got behind the 8 ball about midway through the season, and he had to work himself out of a hole. And it seems like Caleb really probably performs better under those types of situations and circumstances. So, it's not surprising to see him pushing himself like this. The one thing that might get surprising, though, Johnny, is if that being the case, once Caleb actually gains the points lead, if he's able to do that, and I'm sure after the day's race it's going to come pretty close, but once he does, if he does, what's going to happen in his mind is he doesn't have anything to chase at that point. Now he's back into defense mode, what he was at round number 1 basically, and trying to defend that number 1 title and the number 1 plate from last year. So he's not trying to race from behind the 8 ball, which he did all season basically last year right up to the end. So the pressure could be different whenever we go down to the final races of this 2014 season in the bid for this championship. And Caleb might be in a little bit different scenario, one that he hasn't seen himself in, trying to defend rather than come from behind.
Yeah, and many champions that you'll talk to, from Barry Hawk to Bill Balance to Chris Borich to all these guys that have won championships, they'll tell you it's harder to defend a title than it is to win. When you come in kind of the underdog, nobody's really, even last year, I think, Caleb was so close to that championship in 2012. I think there was a little bit of expectation on him last year, but not nearly what there is this year. So now we see Charlie Mullins working his way through the pro pits, and that gap seems to be about the same. So with just 2 miles of racing left, barring some unforeseen circumstances, I think the top 2 have kind of settled in, and we'll have to see if Josh Strang's made any headway towards, possibly picking up some time on Charlie in that second place spot. But yes, I definitely think that Caleb probably is dealing with a little bit more pressure than maybe what he was last year this time, or will be if he takes over the point lead, because again, last year he was working from behind after having some issues at Kentucky and not finishing that race. So he's definitely definitely stepped up and flexed his muscle here today and established himself as the man to beat today at Big Buck. And Chandler walks by the studio here, and I did notice that his wife Chandler, who was wearing out the grass in front of the pit, waiting for him to come. So
she's got a different pair of shoes on too. I think she wore those.
She has to change her soles on her shoes every lap because she's pacing back and forth. But
she doesn't have much longer, Johnny, to pace. We're only about 3 minutes out from a checker. There is the number 4, Josh Strang. Man, I got to say, not only am I impressed and happy with Josh's results here, but how quickly and how well he adapted to the changes in bikes. 3 different bikes in the last 3 seasons, man. I mean, well, 4 if you look at it. He had a Suzuki, went to a KTM. Last year he was Kawasaki. This year he's a Yamaha.
Yeah, and obviously that Yamaha's suiting Josh's style and the backing that he's getting from, the M-Pro team and all the guys at Yamaha, and obviously his personal sponsors with, Rocky Mountain ATV and Motorcycle and all those guys. It's a great program he's put together, and we touched on this at the last race. Josh is really kind of a rejuvenated rider this year with all the support that he's received. I mean, last year built a great program for himself, but was maybe just lacking kind of that. And I think we kind of danced around it last time as well. But, when Josh was a factory Suzuki rider, he had a semi there, and he had all these guys that were there for him. If Josh needed a sandwich, there was one made. If, Josh's goggles were placed out for him, he had only to focus on racing.
Right.
Where the past 2 years, he had to do a lot more of the behind-the-scenes stuff other than just doing his training and riding his dirt bike. So
I think he's adapting well, though. I mean, this race, just the attitude, the comfort zone that Josh seemed to be in on a personal level, as we watch Caleb Russell out at the 11.5-mile marker now, motoring his way home to checkers and to what looks like possibly moving back into the points lead here in the overall, not only in the class itself, due in about 2 minutes or so, or actually a minute and a half.
I got excited. I thought that was Charlie for a minute there. Just say, whoa, we've got a race on our hands. He's tracking him down. But it was a lapped rider getting his way in there. But, Caleb looks great. And there we see Chris Douglas, one of the XC2 riders, obviously having a bit of an off day today, going a lap down to Caleb. And, Charlie should be working his way through our shot here real soon. And, but, yeah, I mean, Josh has done an excellent job, adapting to the new program and the new bike. And, podium finishes already this year, and one can only think that wins are soon to come for him and that new team he's built. And there was our winner from round 1 in Florida, Charlie Mullins checking his way through. So there's the second place ride, and now we'll wait on the third place ride of Josh Strang.
Here's something to me that I think is rather interesting, and I'm not meaning this in any disrespect any way whatsoever when it comes to Charlie. And it comes to Caleb whenever they get in these situations where their back's against the wall, where Caleb seems to really buckle down and start fighting for it and really gets so aggressive at it. He claws his way out of that situation, I'm not saying that Charlie has faltered or failed or anything like that, but it seems like whenever Charlie gets in that situation, he doesn't, it appears to trouble him a little more mentally than what we see it trouble Caleb. So with this transition and the tightening of the points and stuff here today, it's going to be interesting to see exactly whether or not Charlie is going to be able to keep that championship composure. I mean, he normally doesn't let a lot of things shake him, but I know that getting beat by his teammate, getting beat, period, on a consistent basis, especially, since opening up and looking like he was going to be such a big dominator. But right there, that guy right there is the total dominator right now. And we're talking about none other than the KR557 or KR1 here this year, as Caleb Russell takes the win as he rounds the final turn. And he is your BP Fuels Big Buck GNCC champion.
Yeah, what a great ride for Caleb today, coming from that bad start, getting the lead about midway, and and then really just pushing the pace and getting that comfortable gap. Just stepping back just 1 minute to what you were saying about Charlie. I don't necessarily think this is going to rattle Charlie at all. I don't think that it's a matter of responding to the pressure. I think, we can't look at the championship picture based on this race.
Right.
Caleb's won 3 races in a row. That's awesome. He's obviously established himself as the man to beat today in the last couple rounds. But Charlie Mullins is a contender. Charlie Mullins is a competitor. Charlie Mullins will go home. Charlie Mullins will do the work. Charlie Mullins will be back in winning races. Don't second guess that for 1 minute.
Not a bit. But like I say, Charlie, we'll see. I mean, time will tell, and this is one of those things where basically, I guess, Charlie just seems to wear his emotions a little more forward than what Caleb does in that circumstance, I guess, and that might be why I pick up on that. But
and there we see Charlie checking in with that second place spot. Great ride for him today. Being exactly where he needs to be. He couldn't get the win today, but he held on to that second place position and was able to stretch it back out over Josh Strang and managed to score the maximum points for himself today. Allowing Caleb to get that win isn't going to sit well with him. He's going to go home. He's going to work hard, but at the same time, he's got to take a little bit of satisfaction in knowing that he was fast early. He'll take that and he'll go ahead and expound on that for 2 weeks from now and figure out what he needs to do if he gets that breakaway next time to hold it till the end. And Charlie's a thinker. Charlie analyzes, and you say he wears his emotions on his sleeve. That can be a good or a bad thing, but I think in Charlie's case, I think he's going to take this home. He's probably going to watch this broadcast. He's going to watch and he's going to see.
He's going to kick me right in the shin.
No. I mean, hey, you got to commentate on the racing we saw today, and Caleb was the best guy out there today. I think maybe next race it'll be Charlie, maybe it'll be Josh, maybe it'll be Paul Whibley. Who knows who it could be?
I think Charlie and all these guys know exactly where I'm coming from whenever it comes to this. Man, I have nothing but the utmost respect for them. And that guy right there, the former champion himself, there are 3 GNCC champions, at least former or current, that are on the podium right now. And actually one of them is a national enduro champion right now as well. When
a lot of championships sitting on that chute right there.
There are, man. And that right there, I think, we keep talking about it, and I've said this for years, America's premier off-road racing championship and the world-renowned Amsoil GNCC series, and I think that's pretty obvious whenever you're looking at that international flavor with Josh Strang in there, a former champion of the GNCC series, on the podium. I mean, just so much just tells the tale of this being the elite world championship these days. I mean, we've seen the transition, I think, from we got the world enduros and stuff. Don't get me wrong, those are great championships and everything. But to me, I think that a lot of the world's eyes have been turning to this as much as the World Enduro Championships. And what I like about this is, it ranks right up there. And there's only a handful of people that have been able to come here, win the GNCC, win the World Enduro Championship title, and also get ISDE gold. And that has been Juha Salmon, Shane Watts, and David Knight, if memory serves me correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Those guys have come over, and we can see, these guys have expended every ounce of energy they have. And the last shot we just saw was Andrew DeLong checking by with a quick look at our RacerTV camera. 4th place for him. That's going to be his best ride so far this year, with 4th place overall. Big step for him into the XC1 class. And it looks like if she's ready, we've got Jen checking in with Caleb Russell, today's winner, and let's hear what he has to say.
She looks ready.
That's right, guys. We are ready, and Caleb Russell is ready as well. 3 in a row for you here, Caleb. Talk about the day for you.
It was a pretty rough day. It was hot and humid, and the track was rough, but got a bad start. Nick Davis got up the inside of me and was going for the gusto, and he's just a young kid, going for it, but he went down right in front of me, and I got pretty fired up about that, but Charlie was out front, and I knew if I could catch him, I could win it, and I caught up to him, and I knew I was going to win, so that was just it was a good day, and I had a lot of fun, but it was a struggle out there for sure.
Yeah, talk about that lap. It feels like we saw you back there, you were catching up early on, and then all of a sudden you came out and you were way up there. So tell us, how that went down right there in that part of the race.
Yeah, just it was tough to make moves real fast, but I just tried to pick lines as good as I could and get around those guys really quick. And I could see Charlie. I knew Charlie was in the lead and he was gone. So when I got in the second, I was like 38 seconds down. I knew if I could catch him, I could demoralize him a little bit and get in the lead. But that's what I tried to do, is just catch up to him and make the pass, and just kind of settled into a pace. And then I kind of went for it there with 2 laps to go, and come away with the win.
We talk about on the ATV side the Chris Borich move. He always passes guys on the last lap, but I'm starting to think we have the Caleb Russell move going on. You might not always get the best start, but it seems like you're just right back up there. It's almost like your patented thing anymore.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I don't always get the best starts, and that kind of puts me in a hole. And but I wish I could get a better start, make life a lot easier, because it's stressful to do that, especially when Charlie rides really well. And just by chance I could reel him in, and I was really meshing with the track the first few laps, and I was riding really well. So, like I said, I just caught up to him and just made the pass as quick as I could, and just tried to stay in front of him and open up a gap.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you're leading the points now, heading into round 5. Congratulations, Caleb. Good ride out there.
Thank you.
All right, our second place finisher over here, Charlie Mullins. Charlie, you were leading that race for a while there in the beginning. You and Caleb had some great battles. Talk about your day a little bit.
Yeah, started off good. Then I came around first turn and fifth, and we had a couple miles of field, so it was extremely dusty, and I was able to make a couple passes and get into third before heading into the woods, and I got around Wibley at the Old Creek jump and had a line. I got around Ashburn before the hill climb and kind of got in the lead, and just kind of tried to ride my pace and got reeled in by Caleb. Then he got around me in the tight pine tree section and just tried to latch on to his rear wheel, and we were pushing pretty hard, and second last lap I ended up making a mistake, and he got a little time on me, and at that point, I was trying as hard as I could, but really couldn't make up any time, so pretty disappointing. I felt like I rode a lot better than I did at Still Creek, but there's still something I'm searching for. I need to figure it out.
Yeah, I was going to say, you seem a lot less disappointed in this ride, and you have every reason to be less disappointed. It seems like you and Caleb both, you put such a gap on the field, and it's no longer about who's faster, it's about who makes the least amount of mistakes. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and it seems like I keep making the mistakes, and, like today, it's just one of those, clipped the lapper, then ended up hitting a tree and hit my hand pretty good, so last 2 laps were pretty tough, but just kind of did the best I could and really didn't make up any time and just kind of stayed about even. So, not the result I was wanting, but, we got a couple-week break and a weekend off for me finally. So hopefully I'll regroup and come back for the next round.
Yeah, that's good. I know you're really busy with the National Enduros. You're doing awesome there. You're doing really well here in the GNCC. Just a few points down from Caleb heading into round 5. It was a good ride for you, Charlie.
All right, thanks.
All right, guys, our third place finisher right here, Josh Strang. Josh, talk about that race a little bit. It seems like you were on the chase for these guys up front. You made up a lot of time there at the end. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I got up. My bike didn't fire off the line, so I was back there in the dust, I think, with Caleb. And I kind of I knew I had to try and stay with him there if I wanted to get towards the front. So he made some passes, and I tried to make them as quick as I could as well to stay with him. And I think we might have got into second and third together, and then he gapped me and caught Charlie, and then I could see these boys, and I caught them maybe 5 seconds just before we gassed, and I had a pretty big crash, and then coming to gas, I don't know, maybe 15 seconds, and then I caught Charlie, and then he picked up the pace that last lap and a half, and I just couldn't hang there at the end of the race. So it's not a bad day, so I'll take it.
Yeah, for sure. Now, this is like the first stop that you guys have had that's not some kind of weird conditions. It seemed like the track was a lot faster and a lot more rough. So was it more of a conditioning thing? I know you spent a lot of time with your training regimen. Did that come into play there at the end?
Yeah, it was. I mean, all these guys here are fit, and Charlie, I know, and Caleb as well. But I think I had to spend. I used a little more energy trying to catch these guys. I knew if I didn't catch them straight away, I wouldn't catch them at all. So I had to have a go, and I nearly got to them. And maybe, who knows, maybe if I got to them, I might have felt a little better. But yeah, once I had that crash and then caught Charlie, I was pretty much done. So it's good. The Rocky Mountain ATV MC Yamaha worked unreal today, so I'm pumped with that. And I just got to keep going, man. I'm sick of third place, that's for sure.
Yeah, but you know what? Third place consistency is a lot better than some of the other situations. So congratulations on a good ride.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we're actually gonna send it up to you, Rodney. I'm gonna get things situated down here for a minute.
And outside that camera shot, what we saw in the background was we saw Andrew Delong check in fourth.
Yeah.
So that was his best ride of the season. So great ride for him. We saw Paul Wibley make that move we talked about. He came from 7th to 5th on that last lap. So the Axeman, again, chopping wood. He went out there, obviously struggled early, but whatever his struggles were, he sorted them out. And at the end there was riding very fast with put in a lap time actually over a minute faster than DeLong in fourth place.
Wow,
so, it only came in 57 seconds. So one more lap, that could have been a fourth place position for Wibley. Although I'm sure DeLong would have given it up without a fight. And then Jordan Ashburn in the 6th place spot. And then we saw some of our XC2 guys check in and a big shake up there, but we'll see that here coming up in a minute.
I think this is pretty neat. Not necessarily neat, but intriguing, I guess, would probably be the best way to put this. As by the way, our elapsed time for the winner, 3 hours, 28 seconds.
Yep.
So that's about as close to 3 hours as we're going to get, I think, without going over or under. But nonetheless, the changes that we saw there on the last lap, I mean, we saw them early on in the race, a lot of jockeying for position and jumbling around and stuff. But watching that final lap and how it all panned out, Russell, Mullen, Strang, we know that they got in the top 3. We know that DeLong got 4th, and we know that Whibley pulled in the number 5 spot. Ashburn was able to hang on to 6th after running so strong there in the early part of this race. 7th place went to Stu Baylor. 8th place to Jason Thomas, Ryan Sykes, and 9th and Takeshi Koikata. Looks like he may be sitting in the catbird seat for 10th place as we look and see Trevor Bollinger. Remember, we saw him in the pits there that last time he stopped. They were pouring the water down the back of his neck. Johnny, you just remember you said, quit pouring that down my neck. Give me that. I want a drink of that. Look at Trevor Bollinger now as he has made his way into the finish line region now in the 3rd place position.
Yeah, we
only
saw
5 seconds. 5 seconds behind Ricky Russell, who finished 57 seconds behind Grant Baylor, who Baylor came back from out of nowhere to take over the overall win, or take that win in that XC2
Absolutely.
class.
What a great ride for Grant Baylor. He struggled a little bit early, was outside the top 5, worked his way up, was in a podium position, ultimately taking the win with 57-second lead over Ricky Russell on that last lap. And,
That's huge.
Rough and Rowdy led it all day.
He did.
Grant Baylor was able to get him at the end, and then Trevor Bollinger obviously expending himself. We could see by the shot there that he's both overheated and dehydrated. And let's check in with Jen Kenyon to see about our XC2 results.
That's right, Grant Baylor. You weren't leading that lap heading into the final lap here. Talk about how you made that pass on Ricky.
Yeah, it was. I think I was about 30 seconds behind him, and the lap before that I was about just over a minute or so, and so I figured I could catch him. I figured I was going about 30 seconds a lap faster, and that'd have been cutting it close. But over there on the other side, about 3 miles in, I saw Ricky. He just got up from a crash, and he was getting on his bike. So I just went on by and just tried to ride it in. It was hot, and didn't want to. It was really dangerous track. It was super rooty and choppy, and really fast. But yeah, so I just tried to ride smooth and ride it in.
Yeah, definitely. Now, did something happen to you like in mid-race that kind of made you a little bit further back than those guys?
Well, the first and second and third lap, I was just riding like a total goon and just arm pump, and I don't know what was going on. But after that, I started figuring things out and caught up to those guys and got by Trevor. Caught Trevor, he waved me by, and then he tagged along with me for a little ways, and then broke away from him and just tried to catch Ricky.
All right, well, we've had a lot of South Carolina residents win here today, and Grant, you're just yet another one of those guys. It's got to feel pretty good to get this win in your home state.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, congratulations out there. Good ride. We're going to move over to our second place finisher. I'm not sure. All right. Ricky Russell, it's a tough last lap for you there, but you were riding so awesome there, and you were leading a majority of the race. Tell us about it.
I just got a decent start. Not awesome, but got around a few people, and Bollinger got around me, but then had a few lines picked out, got back by him. And then I was a little tight, riding real smooth and just slow, but once I loosened up, I put the hammer down and was able to pull a little bit of a gap. And then he started reeling me in. Grant did that last lap. Second to last lap, I started to hit the wall and then tried to do one last push and crashed really hard into the tree and got up. Grant got by me, and I knew I needed to finish, baby it in. I was getting a little tired and exhausted.
Yeah, this one, it's hot. The conditions are rough. We know it was a tough race for everybody out there, but I have to say, this is your second season in GNCC racing, I don't think I've ever seen you look so comfortable and go so fast out there all in one race.
Yeah, I mean, my Yamaha's working awesome. It's no complaints. It's a great bike, and Team Off-Road Biking, Atlas Yamaha, Reigns Racing. With the sport, it's awesome. It makes you just have that much more confidence, and it's showing. So.
Yeah, the points have to be all mixed up now with all this kind of stuff, so it'll be exciting to see how it all pans out for you.
Yeah, I think me, Grant, and Bollinger are all real close right there, so it'll be a good championship battle.
Yeah, for sure. Well, good job out there, and we'll see you there next round. I believe Trevor's a little bit under the weather, so we might just send it back to you. If he's feeling up to it, we'll get some words. If not, We won't.
All right, thanks a lot, Jen. That's a good way to put it. We either will or we won't. And, it's pretty neat. Johnny, we were talking about that on that last lap. We saw Trevor going in there. He was trying to get cooled down. Temperature, a big part, I think, played a big factor in this race today. The war of attrition, the war against the heat. Were you ready? We say these guys are all ready for it. They train so hard. They train here. They do this. They do that. But I honestly don't think that whenever we haven't seen temperatures this warm basically all summer or all spring long, no matter how hard you've trained, after 3 hours in these kind of conditions, it can begin to wear and tear on you. We saw it in Charlie Mullins' face. I think we could see not only frustration, but I think maybe a little bit of exhaustion in his part as well. Josh Strang looked a little bit winded, I guess you could say, but hot. But again, he was able to fight through it all. But again, I think it all had its effects. DeLong ends up in 4th. Paul Whibley in 5th. Jordan Ashburn in 6th. In 7th overall is Grant Baylor. 8th overall is his brother, Stu Baylor, and that was about a 40-second difference on adjusted time right there. So Grant gets Stu in that brotherly battle there. 9th overall is Jason Thomas. Ricky Russell gets 10th overall, is 2nd in the XC2 Pro Lights, and 11th overall is Trevor Bollinger, who got 3rd in that class. As far as top amateurs are concerned here today, we are still looking. Oh, we might have had a check. Nope, Austin Lee is 19th overall, but Craig DeLong still running about a minute and 31 seconds ahead of him as they headed into the final lap. So it looks like we'll probably be seeing Craig DeLong in there for that overall top amateur spot there from the 250A class. And it looks like Trevor is actually getting himself composed for the interview, and I saw him sitting there, man. I mean,
he was obviously he'd expended every ounce of energy.
I'm sitting here in.
We don't mind giving him a few extra minutes
to
prepare himself.
No, I can imagine. I mean, I've broken sweat, and we haven't even moved from where we are right now, And I can only imagine what these guys are feeling like. And let's go down to Jen Kenyon and see exactly what's going on.
That's right, guys. I know we're all feeling the heat here as just spectators. Trevor, I can't imagine what you guys just went through 3 hours out there. You're obviously a little bit spent, but it's another good finish for you on the podium here.
Yeah, it was real hot today, and I don't know what I was doing through the middle of the race, and I couldn't ride, and I finally got my win that last lap and just pushed to the end. I closed in, fought a few seconds, but I just couldn't make the pass, but it's a good day.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime you can keep those championship points alive. You were leading the points heading into this one, which has got to be a great feeling for you as a rookie. But you guys are all so close that you're right there in it still.
Yeah, I'd like to keep the points lead, but I'm still only a few points out of it. So it's a good day to salvage some points and look forward to the next one.
All right. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. Take care of yourself now.
All right. Thank you.
All right, guys.
All right, thanks a lot, Jen Kenyon, and congratulations to Trevor and all the guys for the hard work today. And, of course, just want to send a shout-out to Union County, man. 18 races we've been coming here, and this place rolls out the red carpet every time we turn around, man. A great and historical town and community, and a community that believes in GNCC racing, believe it or not. I mean, the travel and tourism, I mean, we're on the map, man, along with them. I mean, whenever people say Union, South Carolina, Big Buck GNCC seems to be a pretty much a big part of that. And, Johnny, I tell you, man, what a great day of racing. We had exceptional weather. It was warm, obviously, something a little different than we've seen all season. We saw dust, something that we haven't seen since probably round 2 on ATV Day in Georgia. And so a lot of different elements out here today. We saw people pushing themselves to the limits. We saw people that we didn't expect up front and fall back, and people that fell back that we didn't expect to, but climbed their way up through the ranks. So it's another amazing day of GNCC racing here at the Big Buck GNCC.
Yeah, absolutely. A great day of racing, bar banging action from start to finish. And, we had Caleb Russell with his 3rd win in a row. Charlie Mullins, consistent finish in 2nd after leading much of the day. And then, Josh Strang in 3rd. So if I'm not mistaken, that was your top 3 in points coming into the day. They're going to be your top 3 in points leaving, although there was a shake-up for that points leader background. So I believe Caleb Russell is going to be leaving here with that after today. So Charlie Mullins is certainly going to go home, spend the next 2 weeks. One thing Charlie mentioned is this will be his first weekend off because
Right.
with racing the National Enduros, he's been racing every weekend between the GNCCs. No National Enduro next weekend, so he's got a full 2 weeks to go back, regroup, analyze, get ready to go for Springville, Indiana in just 2 more weeks, and these guys will come out swinging. And I'll tell you what, Rodney, I can't wait to sit here and call the action again.
I know.
I think it might be more exciting than actually being out there racing.
I don't know about that, but I know it's pretty exciting. I can say that, and I'm looking forward to it too. And I get a week off as well, heading into Easter, I guess. Thanksgiving was back last fall, but anyway, Easter break coming up next week, and then of course we're going to be back in action in 2 weeks. As a matter of fact, as we will be heading to Indiana for the Limestone 100 as GNCC racing continues here in the 2014 season. And with that being said, Johnny, that's going to wrap up this day of racing and our broadcast with GNCC Live. I want to say thanks to Jeremy and Griff. Great job in the trailer. All of our camera operators, of course. We got Price, we got Gloop, we had Jared Bolton out there, Jacob out there doing a great job, Clint out there doing a great job. Just want to say thanks to all those great folks for doing such a wonderful job. To you, Johnny Gallagher, Brian Pierce from Seat Time, and of course Jen Kenyon. Looking good, sounding good. I mean, we had a great time here today at the Big Buck. And with that said,
I have to take the opportunity to thank the voice of GNCC Racing for leading the crew through it all. Rodney, you do such a great job. Thanks for letting me kind of try and tag onto your coattails a little bit.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. I love the company. Well, Johnny, I appreciate it. And to all of you out there in GNCC Racing Land, or what we should say, the extended GNCC Racing Nation, good day, everybody.